with all of the potential trades that could be made, you stress could be made, I talked to Doug about that, and he said, yeah, he thinks those trades can be tied into the draft, which makes this draft kind of a quote-unquote deadline for those trades. Now, before we get any further, I want to stress that he also said he could see the Blues picking at 11, 15, 29, free agency goes by, and then some of those trades aren't made, if they're made, until after the draft. But he felt like the two were tied together and that this could be a deadline for some of those deals.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that was Jeremy Rutherford on with us a couple of weeks ago talking about why the deadline for the Blues to make some of these deals might be the NHL draft. They've got some big-time assets, man. 11, 15, 29. They've also got a lot of prospects in their system right now. They've got Kyrou and Parayko. Maybe you throw in Jordan Binnington into that mix as well. Pius Suter is a really solid, quote-unquote throw-in. I don't mean to demean him in that way, but that's kind of the way that maybe some of these teams would view it in any kind of a deal. That's a lot of assets to be able to handle right now. I remember a few years ago, Alex, we got to the trade deadline. I think this was 2021, if I remember correctly. And the Cardinals had a ton of assets. And we had Keith Law on. And he said, hey, if the Cardinals want to get involved in a trade discussion, they could basically deal for any player in Major League Baseball right now, other than Shohei Ohtani. Because at the time, they had Jordan Walker, who was a top prospect. They had Nolan Gorman and Tink Hintz and Alec Burleson. All these guys add up, and Mason Wynn was in that conversation. They had so many different pieces that had grown in prospect capital at that point in time that they could basically deal for anybody that they wanted to. The Blues feel very similar right now. Matthew Knies' name is out there in every trade discussion, it appears. I heard Kiprios yesterday talking on his show, saying, hey, this is real. The Maple Leafs are legitimately exploring what they can get for Matthew Knies because they are so limited in flexibility, and this is the guy that could bring back a haul if the Maple Leafs want to really change the look of their roster. The Blues are the kind of team that could offer that haul. There's a new buzz this morning from Darren Dreger that the Buffalo Sabres might re-engage in conversation surrounding Bowen Byram, who we know the Blues had serious interest in this time last year. And that's not to mention McTavish from the Anaheim Ducks, or Shane Wright, or so many of the other players, including Maverick Bourque, and all these guys that could potentially become available, whether it's offer sheets, trades, free agents, all these different things. It feels like the Blues are about to have a very active next 2 weeks, Alex.
Yeah, and honestly, I think between now and Friday, next Friday, the 26th, when the draft starts, is when a lot of that noise potentially becomes into action, because you're seeing the conversations happen between teams now that the Stanley Cup final is done. You've already seen a couple of teams make moves, and with these players' names being out there, like a Matthew Knies, like a Bo Byram, even for some of the younger ones, the assets you're going the other way are draft picks in this year's drafts. If Matthew Knies is getting traded, it's not for a draft pick in 2027. They're doing their due diligence to find, can we get another draft pick in this year's draft to get another impact player? Because you retool on the fly. You trade a guy who is young, controllable, and is a good piece to go out there and upgrade the rest of your roster. So if you're the Blues and you're interested in this, well, the time to strike is now, because you've got 11 and 15, and that's very ideal for a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Anaheim Ducks, for example, they don't need draft picks. They want players now. A deal for a Mason McTavish, that can happen after the draft. That can happen once free agency takes place. But the deals of potentially Matthew Knies, those happen, even a Bo Byram with the Buffalo Sabres, those happen before the draft, because you want to know where you're picking in that draft and know where you're at so you can do some maneuvering. So I think Bo Byram's name popping up. I think with Matthew Knies' name popping up. Hell, even Maverick Bourque. I think Dallas is probably going to engage teams prior to the draft so that they don't get offer sheeted, right? You get a pick in this year's draft rather than worry about 2027. So between now, and I know JR, when he talked with Doug Armstrong, Army told him like the 20th is when he expected things to really pick up. up. So I think in the next 2 days, all the way up to June 26th, that's when that noise potentially turns into actual actions from teams.
And you mentioned Dallas. That's another team that I would throw in here with a different player, with Jason Robertson.
Correct.
We're getting closer to the July 1st, quote-unquote, deadline for that. Like, if he elects for arbitration and they're not able to get a deal done prior, he could elect for a 1-year deal that walks him right up to unrestricted free agency, and he's going to get a big amount of money if he ends up signing a 1-year contract with the Dallas Stars, the likes of which would put them into a really difficult cap situation for Maverick Bourque. So they're going to try to avoid that situation, I would assume, which means getting something done with at least one of those two guys in the next couple of weeks. And that may mean still having to deal Jason Robertson. I understand that they don't want to do that. But this is why I've brought up his name for so long is, yeah, but I can see your cap situation. You're not in a good spot to be able to re-sign Jason Robertson to the long-term deal that he's likely to command. And frankly, if I'm Jason Robertson's representation, I'm waiting to see what Alex Tuch gets.
Correct.
Because if Tuch ends up signing for $12 million, well, I'm not taking a penny less than that. My player has been more productive than Alex Tuch as a winger, is younger, and should be getting huge term on this contract as well. So I look at where the Blues are at. I look at the offseason that potentially lies ahead. This could be a trade tsunami that's about to crash over the NHL. This could be an offseason unlike what we've seen in a really long time, because there are a lot of teams with cap space. There are a lot of teams that are in a transition moment across the NHL. Look up at Edmonton. Look at Toronto. There are a lot of teams that were in their winning window and feel as though they've got to pivot in one way or another. Tampa Bay would be another.
Yep.
Darren Radish is a big-time free agent this offseason. Apparently, that's the guy that Toronto is coveting in free agency. I don't know if that's the right move, but whatever.
It's not.
They're going to continue to chase that number 1 D-man, and I guess they're going to get a number 4 D-man to go be that guy
but
for him.
They'll pay him like a number 1. They'll pay him like he was the guy that put up 60 points.
Tampa would like to re-sign Radish this offseason. Well, that means they've got to make a move. Now you're hearing a lot of buzz about Florida. What are they going to do this offseason? Can they bring back Bobrovsky? Apparently, the 38-year-old goalie would like to get a 6-year contract. I don't know how that's going to work for him, but God bless. If you can find it somewhere, go out there and get him, my man.
Nobody questioning his brittle bones if he wants to play until he's 44 years old?
All of this
drinks a lot of milk.
Just leads to uncertainty around the league.
Yeah.
And that's Doug Armstrong's music, man. He loves being able to take advantage of other teams in vulnerable situations. And now is his time to strike. He's got 2 weeks to go out there and make one hell of a move, and I think he's got something up his sleeve, man.
Well, and here's the other part in this, too. Like, a lot of these free agents, it is going to be a waiting game because they're waiting to see what all of these other guys are going to sign. I saw an article that said, Carlson and Fantilli aren't signing a contract until Connor Bedard signs a contract. So what teams don't like to do is when free agency opens on July 1st is have to sit and wait until a player decides where he wants to go, because the longer you wait, the less likely you are to get the pieces you want when other guys sign. And there's just so many names out there. And when you're Doug Armstrong, I know there's other teams that have probably better top assets available, but let's take New Jersey, for example, because people think Nico Hischier's available or Simone Nemec is available. Those are better pieces than what the Blues would have to offer in terms of Parayko and Kyrou, just because of the established play of a guy like Hischier, a number 1 center, and a Nemec who's got that high upside. But New Jersey's expecting to win, or their fans are at least expecting them to start winning right now. Whereas the Blues, I don't think fans are expecting that.
And also, just as an aside on that, every report seems to indicate Hischier is going to get an extension done.
Correct.
And so that was the better of the two assets that you just mentioned.
Dylan Larkin, the report now is Steve Yzerman's, I'm not going to be bent over with this. You will pay the price that I'm asking, which means he may not get moved. It's why the Blues still, in my opinion, are the one-stop shop for a lot of teams that want to upgrade. You've got a 30-goal scorer. You've got a top-pair eligible defenseman. You've got a number 1 goalie. You have the most picks in this year's draft, with 3 in the first round and 3 in the third round.
And 2 in the top 15.
And a top 12 prospect pipeline in the National Hockey League. So the Blues have any area they want to go. The question will be, do other teams meet the price for what Doug Armstrong is asking? Because Doug wants the best in return if you're getting his pieces.
And to that point, the Blues have the assets for every kind of a team. If you're a rebuilding team, Blues have assets for you. If you're a team that's trying to win right now, well, let's talk about Jordan Kyrou, Jordan Binnington, or Colton Parayko. If you're a team that's kind of in the middle, you're trying to pivot, Toronto, for example, well, we can give you a piece from every age range. We've got a guy in the mid-20s. We've also got prospects, and we've got a pick that we can give you to be able to make your life a little bit easier. So they can appease anybody. The other thing they can do, and Alex, we talked a little bit about this during our pre-show meeting today, was they can also take on a bad contract. Now, I don't think they're going to want to take on term, but similar to how they got the 15th overall selection at this year's deadline, they took on what is considered to be a quote-unquote bad contract in Druin, $4 million for next year. Whatever, that's fine. We can offset some of the money for Justin Falk for the Red Wings by taking on this deal because we have ultimate flexibility for 2026. Now, things get a little more difficult in that regard beyond this season because they've got some money that's going to hit the books eventually. But for right now, if somebody's got a 1 year, like $7 million deal that they need to get off of their hands, the Blues could take that on, and it would not be a problem for them. So they can do just about anything to make life easier in terms of trade negotiations for whoever they're talking to. Where a lot of these teams would say, well, we can't give you veteran players. That would take us out of our contention cycle. Or we can't give you picks because we are also rebuilding. We think Matthew Knies fits our timeline, but we can't give you the first-round pick that you're looking for here, Toronto. So they can do a little bit of anything.
Yeah.
And that makes them the ultimate negotiator at a time where a lot of teams are ready to start doing business.
It's just the perfect time if you're Doug Armstrong and really Alex Steen to try and make an impact with this roster that you're taking over on July 1st because the Blues have made it really clear they're not making moves unless the players are in their time frame that they want, which is 25 and younger. Listen to the guys that you just listed off. Knies, Byram, Bork, McTavish. I know Wright's name has been brought up there. All of these guys are 25 or younger. This is the prime offseason to make moves if you're trying to make your team better for the long haul and better right now.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It's 11:15. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Coming up in about 15 minutes, the Ivar Stenberg dream might officially be dead. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. It might finally be coming to an end, Alex. I'm praying that it's coming to an end.
What, man?
We'll tell you what that is next year on 101 ESPN. think it's over, man. I hope it's over.
Cue it, T-Bone. Although we've come. We sound like boys to men, man.
We don't sing Believe It or Not.
More like men to boys, am I right? High five, buddy. Yeah!
The Chris Roycroft experience needs to be over.
I know.
I understand that he's got a nice fastball. He's got big stuff. It just ain't working. He's got a 6 ERA in 59 innings with the team. He's now been with you for 3 years. He's 29 years old. He's not a spring chicken any longer. It's just not happening here. I hope that Chris Roycroft goes elsewhere, and it works for him. And he has a long and sustainable and prosperous career wherever he may go. I just don't want it to be in St. Louis anymore. I'm done. I have reached my end on how much I can watch this experience. It's not fun. It's really not fun. He doesn't know where the ball is going. I don't care any longer if he has success at the AAA level, because I think we've seen at this point, he's one of those guys that you add the third deck and it just changes. It changes the way he pitches. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a lack of trust in his stuff. I don't even care anymore. I just don't want to watch this guy pitch any longer in a Cardinals uniform. Last year we saw this, where at the beginning of the season we talked about it. The Cardinals didn't have a bullpen problem. They had a Chris Roycroft and Ryan Fernandez problem, and that problem was fixed when they were banished down to AAA. And the Cardinals, once again, do not necessarily have a bullpen problem, but they do, or at least did, have a Chris Roycroft problem. It was announced overnight that he has been optioned to AAA. My hope is that was actually a DFA.
Oh, jeez, man.
I feel bad saying that.
At least let him enjoy his time in AAA.
No, I don't need him to. He can be in AAA for somebody else.
Also got a 4.08 ERA at AAA.
That's what I was going to say. It's not like this guy's been good at AAA this year.
He's been fine.
I mean, 5.8 ERA doesn't make me think, get this guy up to the majors.
Yeah, I know.
6.57 runs allowed per 9 games, yeah.
So you have one guy that you can call up if you're not DFAing him, and that is Bryson Motts, the lefty who can come in and give you some innings, and maybe that's the plan.
I think he should take another lefty spot in the bullpen.
If you decide to DFA him, there are a lot of options that you could go with. My favorite is Luis Gastelum, who has that great Bugs Bunny changeup, and he's been striking out the world down at AAA. He's a righty that can come up and give you some real flexibility in the pen. I think he could work his way into some leverage innings sooner rather than later. There's also Max Rajcic, who could come up and, kind of similar to Luis Gastelum, eventually work his way into some leverage innings. Or if you want to go with more length in your bullpen, you could even call up Bruce Zimmerman, who's been giving bulk innings down at the minor league level. I don't think he's somebody that's going to be with you long term, but if you just need a little bit of length out of the pen for right now, he's another option that you could go to where you don't have to transition a guy like Bryson Motts to a bullpen role instead of continuing to have him stretched out as a starter. So there are a lot of options, but all of them would require, outside of Bryson Motts, some kind of a DFA, most likely with Roycroft. So to me, Alex, this seems like a relatively speaking no-brainer. He's just not somebody that should be on the Cardinals 40-man roster as soon as today.
And that's why he should be DFA'd, because of the other options that are provided to you. Like, sure, you'd like to have arms in the minors still that can pitch for you, but for something like this, you need to open up a spot to get more options for a reliever for you. And I think it's fine if you wanted to go Bryson Motts, but Gastelum is the one that's performing. And everything the Cardinals have shown us this season, including them finding a way to put Blaze Jordan on the 40-man to make sure that you get him up to the roster, is that, yeah, Chris Roycroft will be DFA'd, and they will place the guy who deserves to be on the 40-man roster to get the shot. And that's Gastelum. So, this has been not only the season of surprise for the Cardinals, but it's also been the season of paying off the competition that's taking place and the season of rewarding guys that are developing through your system and honestly cutting off some of the fat from this organization. And it sounds negative to say, but for the longest time, we've said, well, they're not going to do that because it's a 40-man roster move, and they won't DFA this guy. And now, they're starting to trim this fat. They're starting to DFA these guys that just don't fit in with what they're trying to perform. So I hope they go down this path to give Gastelum the chance, who's shown in the minors, hey, the strikeout stuff plays. This is a guy that you've been thinking about. Now give him the shot at the major league level.
Yeah, and it's not like in my opinion, the bullpen doesn't need any length to it, right? I mean, you got 2 games and then you get an off day. Your bullpen should still be fairly fresh. I would think if you had to, you still have Swanson available today if in a pinch. But everybody else should be available, right? The big arm should be there. The only reason you'd be going to a long man is because you don't trust Libby's going to give you a length tonight, which I guess is maybe part of their thought process if they decide to call up Bryson and Motts instead, because I don't even think Fernandez is eligible to come off the IL yet.
Yeah,
so
I would have thought like yesterday would have been the day that you call up somebody for length, because then you've got Leahy and Libby going back to back. Now, they ended up getting a pretty good start yesterday out of Kyle Leahy. Went 6 innings for you, but typically that's been the consideration is, all right, we've got 2 guys back to back that aren't giving us a whole lot of length here. Let's have somebody up ready to go in case one of them ends up giving you the 4 innings that they've given you lately. But that's not even much of a consideration. It's just the one guy, and then you've got the off day.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's I think the Royals are bad against lefties. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, so maybe that's part of this process.
They're bad against everybody, man. It doesn't matter.
I wasn't going to say it, but,
Come on, man. We just said DFA him and trim fat. We know where we're going.
I'm with you guys, because at this point, as much as they've talked about, hey, yeah, the bullpen's probably the next thing we start to look at, well, Gastelum's clearly the guy that's ready to come up here, I would think. And he's been good against both righties and lefties down in the minors, so it's not like he's overly splitty that you'd have concern about. I don't know why you wouldn't make the move, because there's just, as much as Roycroft does have a nice sinker the way it moves, he just constantly is giving up hits, right? And at some point, we have to go by what the actual numbers say, and we're beyond that time with Chris Roycroft. You can DFA him. Maybe somebody claims him and you lose him, but I would be willing to take that risk. And you know what? I think he would clear through waivers. I think nobody would take the chance on him, and you would still be able to stash him down at AAA.
Or just release him.
Look, man, I was trying to spin this a little bit more positively.
He's just not a guy that I'm worried.
BK doesn't want to see a Cardinal logo near his name.
Is he your Justin Brule?
I think so.
Wow.
I can't do it anymore.
I can't do it with Brule either.
Same, man. I know he didn't give up runs yesterday, but boy, that was ugly.
Yeah, his job, come in, you've got a lefty lane here. 2 of your 3 batters are lefties, and he gave up 2 hits, and he was out of the ball game.
I get it. He's at least had some level of success at the major league level in a Cardinals uniform. Roycroft has not.
That is something we can all agree upon.
Like
or debate.
Brule has been so much better for longer stretches of time than Roycroft has been at any stretch of time over 3 years in the Cardinals organization. At a certain point in time, man, you've had runway. You're a bullpen arm. Nobody gets runway as a bullpen arm. Certainly not as a guy that's 29 years old that was signed out of independent ball as a free agent. It's time. On the Bryson Mott side of things, he would be on turn to take his start, I think today, actually, if they decided to make that move. So that is one thing that makes me wonder, like, are they just going to do the thing where they call up Motts today, he piggybacks off of Matthew Liberatore, and the plan today is to go to those 2 pitchers, hopefully to close out the game for you, and then you option him tomorrow, and that's when you DFA Roycroft, and you bring up one of Gastelum or Rajcic as more of a long-term answer for your bullpen, because then you've also got like Motts and Dobbins in that scenario would almost be on 2 separate timelines where they're a week apart. So at any point, you could basically have one of those guys that's ready to go to call up as your long man or as a spot starter. I could see that making sense. So if the Cardinals make that move today, don't freak out if you don't see one of Gastelum or Rajcic called up and Roycroft immediately DFA'd. It might be a scenario where they're just saying, hey, we've got a pretty opportunistic chance here to call up Motts, get bulk innings from him, and still make the move that everybody wants to see tomorrow as something, because they're also in Kansas City. So it's not as though it's like this long-term planning that they have to do where they've got to have a guy get on a 6-hour flight tomorrow.
Where's Memphis at? Are they at home?
I don't know. They could honestly just have like one of those 2 guys ready to go in KC tomorrow.
I think they still have the taxi squad from COVID, too. So I think you could exactly do that.
I think Fernandez was with the team recently without being recalled.
Well, that's and then the
next
allowed.
day, he was brought up.
Hey, no, that doesn't sound right.
That doesn't sound like it's eligible.
Memphis right now, by the way, is, let's get down to this part of the schedule. I apologize for my scroll. They're at home playing against Memphis or against Nashville.
They've been kicking the crap out of them because that Joshua Baez.
In center field, am I right?
Yeah.
Lost yesterday by a final score of 10-8. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK.
Also, they had 2 home runs.
What are you doing,
I saw
Tanner?
that. Sorry, I forgot they played a day game yesterday. I was thinking of Baez.
Tanner, you were having a rough day today, and we'll talk more about that later on in the show.
Is the Ivar Stenberg dream officially dead? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals fell to the Padres yesterday 6-1, but they took 2 of 3 from San Diego. They head on the road tonight where they'll start a 3-game set at the Kansas City Royals. 6:40 will be first pitch. Noah Cameron will be on the mound for KC. Matthew Liberatore will get the start for St. Louis. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, is the Ivar Stenberg dream officially dead? It sure feels that way, Alex, after the San Jose Sharks have now made not 1, but 2 trades over the last 24 hours for defensemen. All of the buzz had been suggesting, hey, they really need a right-hand defenseman. And they did. They needed one in a really bad way. And so they were connected to Chase Reed. He's the top right-handed defenseman in this year's class. But yesterday, they made a deal for one of the Buffalo defensemen. And today, they just made another deal for a Boston defenseman. So they're stabilizing things on the blue line with guys that are ready to play today at the NHL level. It all seems to suggest to me they're gearing up to draft Stenberg with the number 2 overall selection. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I do. I still think there's a chance that they take a defenseman with the 2nd overall, but I think it is much more likely now that they just draft Ivar Stenberg because, you know, they get a Kesselring, who is a guy that just didn't get to play in Buffalo, but he was a very touted commodity when he was playing with Arizona prior to being traded to Buffalo. And then, you know, you just continue to add assets. I still think they're probably on the lookout to upgrade the defensive position, but I don't think they're doing it trading the 2nd overall pick anymore because now what they can do, and this is what I think they will do, is they trade they draft Ivar Stenberg with the 2nd overall pick, and then one of the 3 different forwards that they have that play wing that are all top picks, top prospects. William Eklund is probably the best logical one in this scenario. You trade that for a defenseman that could come in and help you because it's a proven commodity at the NHL level. So, yeah, I once I saw that Kesselring trade go down, I kind of thought, yep, I think this is now them saying, yeah, we're taking Ivar Stenberg. Or honestly, maybe it's not Stenberg. Maybe Stenberg goes 1st overall and Gavin McKenna goes 2nd overall. I don't know. I don't think that pick's getting traded.
I agree with that. I think when you see what they did yesterday, they acquired defensemen, it feels like they are screaming towards, we're going to take Stenberg. And I think that makes the most sense, right? I mean, you look at that cast of characters there in San Jose, and it was Celebrani and then a whole bunch of other dudes that were kind of along for the ride. And he's going to need help there. And if you add Stenberg, and as who was it that told us that he's a potential superstar?
Yeah, that was Donati from Prospect on.
When he told us that, okay, so you can potentially add that to Celebrani. You can figure out defense later on, right? Whether that is another draft, it's like you're saying another trade potentially to go out and get that. When you've got a guy like Stenberg that has that potential, okay, try and figure out your defense externally with something else and try and lock in on Stenberg with the number 2 pick.
Was he the only guy worth trading up for? Like getting super aggressive to move up for? Because, Alex, there's still potential of moving up to the number 5 overall selection if the Blues wanted to. And based upon the fact that Stenberg is likely to now go number 2, that means one of these defensemen could potentially fall down further. Maybe it is a Chase Reed who's there at number 5. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about moving up for one of those top-tier defensemen in this class?
Yeah, I'm not moving up. I actually think there's a chance to move up to 4 now because if Stenberg's not there, I think Chicago would listen on trading 4 because they can move down a little bit and not be too upset about it. But no, I don't think so. I really like Chase Reed. I think that guy is going to be a stud at the NHL level. The problem with defensemen is they just take a little bit longer to develop, and I don't think the Blues are in position to wait 3 years for another guy to develop. I think they'd like some help now. And the commodity or the cost of what you'd have to trade to move up, I think I'd much rather just draft 11, 15, and 29 if I'm not getting Stenberg.
If I could do it for 11 and 29.
Oh, yeah, and keep 15.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If I can do it for 11 and a player, like if I could use Kyrou in a deal to move up to 4 or 5, okay, sure, yeah, we could have that conversation as well. But if I have to trade 11 and 15 in order to get up and get one player, based upon all of the reports that I've seen for this year's class, I just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because I think you're going to be able to get multiple players at 11 and 15 that are similar enough to what you would get to number 5 overall that I would just rather have multiple shots at it instead of putting all of my eggs in one basket for a potentially elite player. Based upon what I've seen, like earlier today, The Athletic had their latest mock draft over there, and they had the Blues getting that Belkits kid who's like 6'4", 220 pounds, an absolute monster of a winger. And then they also have them potentially getting a centerman or a defenseman at 15. Well, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good haul to me. If I'm in the Blues' shoes, I would rather have that than just one chance at one of these defensemen.
Or I'm trading those picks to get proven help now, as we talked about in the open. Like, am I trading 11 to get Knies? Am I trading 15 to get Byram?
Sure.
Like, I'd rather get proven help now. And I was all on board with the Stenberg. We all know the proposal that I put out there because I do think that's a superstar. Defensemen are just different. Plus, I also know that you've got Adam Jiricek. And, yeah, you'd like to have more of them, but I think Adam Jiricek is going to be viewed as one of those guys in a couple of years that probably should have been taken in the top 10 when that draft happened because of the injury that pushed him down. So, no, Stenberg was the one guy that I targeted and said, I think this is the spot to go. Now, if you want to move up to 8 or 9 to try and get a centerman that may still be there for you, sure, I'll listen to it, but that's not going to cost you the same that it was going to cost to get to number 2. So I think I'm just more now of, look, that dream's dead. Stay where you're at or go get proven help that can help right away.
2 other pieces of NHL news that I want to get to. Let's start with the coaching news, and then we will get to the trade buzz that's out there right now from Sportsnet. According to multiple reports, Mike Babcock, could potentially get another opportunity to coach again. The NHL has completed its review of Babcock's tenure in Columbus and, quote, certain alleged conduct associated therewithin. Our investigation has concluded that even in a light least favorable to Mr. Babcock, there is no current basis to restrict his employment in the league. In other words, this guy's a douche, but man, I don't think we can block him from being a coach somewhere.
The guy's a POS, but he can still coach. We can't tell him he can't coach.
Not sure there was anything like criminal here, but yo, chill. Like, stop being dumb.
Edmonton is making a mistake, but yeah, you can hire him if you want.
We can't block you from making that mistake.
You make that mistake. We can't tell you not to make that mistake.
So he's going to be the next coach of the Oilers, huh?
So dumb. So dumb, in my opinion. I like, the guy has not had success since 2018-19 season, which that's going to be 8 years when he coaches this season. Now, I know he was with Columbus, never had the chance to coach. His last time in Toronto, it started off poorly, and he was gone because he was asking his players to rank the least hardworking players on the team. Like, this is a guy that
Smart.
It's been called out by multiple Hall of Fame players of how he was, and now we're going to hire him with 2 potential Hall of Famers on our roster because we want to win the Stanley Cup. This is hiring for name recognition, and that's it. This guy hasn't gotten beyond the first round of the playoffs since 13 years ago, and that was when he had Hall of Famers on his team, like Nick Lidstrom.
I've heard of that guy.
This is not going to go.
David's a Hall of Famer.
The guy told Mike Modano, you can't play the last game of your career because we don't want you to set the record of wherever it was, consecutive games played or something like that. He basically broke Johan Franzen. He told Mitch Marner to rank the hardest working players and the least hardest work. Like, this guy is a problem. And this is Stan Bowman saying, well, I need to save my career, so let's go hire Mike Babcock because he's got Stanley Cups.
So that's one of last year's Stanley Cup contenders in the Edmonton Oilers. The other was the Florida Panthers. And according to Nick Kyprios over on Sportsnet, quote, speaking of the Panthers, they remain focused on signing pending UFA Bobrovsky, but they may have to start considering his potential replacement because there is extremely high demand for his services. There are some suggestions that his ask is as high as $42 million over 6 or 7 years. A reminder, he is 38 years old in September.
I can't wait for 45-year-old Sergei Bobrovsky, who's still playing in the NHL.
Or whose contract is still being traded across the NHL, which seems far more likely.
If that's what his ask is, Florida's not signing him. I mean, he was not that good for them this season. I know the team wasn't very good, but, like, he wasn't very good. And you're 37, man. Like, I'm not going to pay you $8 million when you're 42 and you're a problem for our team.
I would say this, like, if I'm, I don't know, one of these teams that's trying to figure it out right now, and I'm desperate enough, I might do it.
Edmonton, if he hits market, I don't think it'd make it work money wise, but that's the team.
If I'm Edmonton, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Screams.
Or Toronto.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Again, I don't know that they can make it work money-wise, but some of these teams that are out there that have had goalie issues for years.
Hell, if I'm Carolina,
Bobrovsky is basically Bennington in that I don't care what he does in the regular season.
If I'm Carolina, I might look at this, not 100%. For the 6 years, but if it's 6 years and you're less AAV, I'll take that. There's a lot of teams that will do it because you sign long-term deals. It's like what we talk about in baseball, right? Like, I'll deal with it in 6 years. If it gets me a cup in the next 2, I'll take that chance. If I'm Florida, that's dumb for me. Because the team, my team is working because I've got all of these stars that are being paid a reasonable price.
So this brings us to Bennington.
Yeah.
An expiring deal at roughly the same dollar figure that apparently Bobrovsky is asking for. If they get desperate here, and they're going to need an answer at that position, and they're going to want somebody that they know can win in the postseason, I would assume. Now, maybe the answer is, we'll go ahead and call up Winnipeg. And we'll give up like Lundell.
That'd be my first choice.
Or something like that. I mean, he makes all the sense in the world at $8.5 million a year. If that doesn't work out for whatever reason, do you think this is a spot where Binnington would legitimately make sense?
Yes, I do. Because I think Binnington can continue his career as the #1 goaltender in Florida. You're going into a system that I have to imagine you mesh very well with, that plays an aggressive style with Paul Maurice. See, I think Hellebuck makes more sense for them because it's got Paul Maurice as the head coach, who's got familiarity with Hellebuck. But that's a price that might hurt Florida in the long run of trading an Anton Lundell, who's young and he's a cost-controlled guy, and you just saw what happens when you lose a Barkov to an injury. But yeah, I think Binnington is probably going to be the second guy on that list after a Connor Hellebuck, and is probably more reasonable because he's not going to cost you more than $6 or $7 million next year, on top of the fact that you can negotiate an extension with him the moment you trade for him and lock him up for the rest of his career. And while you've got a #1, I can go find the guy that will take over for him in 3 to 4 years. So I think it makes sense. I don't think Florida pays the 9th overall pick for Jordan Binnington. And that's what Doug Armstrong's going to say. Like, we'll trade him, give us the 9th overall pick. Or if you want to trade that second-line center, we'll take him, too.
I wonder if you could do, like, Binner plus 15 or Binner plus 29 for the 9th.
Binner plus 29 might make some sense. Or if you want to try and get, I know Lundell is probably too lofty, but they've got another guy, Luosterainen, on their team, who's the center, kind of their third-line center, but he's 27 years old. He's a really good player. If you drove Binnington and 15 for 9 and Luosterainen, maybe something like that.
Sure.
I just don't see a path where 9's involved in any kind of move. For a goalie, and I get it, he doesn't have to be a rental because you could re-sign him.
If you've got 15 though in the deal, that's where I think it maybe could make
Hell,
some sense.
If you've got 29,
you've still got a middle of the first round selection for them. You're just bumping down 6 spots.
Yeah, I think 29
instead of
would do
giving
it too.
up a true first round.
I think 29 is too low. I think it'd have to be probably 15.
I think so too.
See, I think Florida trusts their scouting staff.
Goalies, well, trust the scouting staff or not. Like, you're overpaying then for a goaltender. I mean, just look at how goalies are valued across the market. Name the last goalie that got traded for a first round pick that was a rental. Like,
I think
good luck.
Benner and 15 for 9 maybe makes some sense for both teams.
I can see that one because of what you're saying, right? You're not dropping too far back. When you're dropping to 29, like you're saying, you're basically acquiring like a high second round pick.
And the value for the Blues in that scenario is you probably lock yourself into like Belkets and one of those centers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get Ty Lawrence and Belkets.
Or you could potentially, if one of the defensemen that is considered to be in that elite tier, if one of those guys falls to 9, you could put yourself into that mix as well.
Yeah.
And you still have a legit #1 goalie in Joel Hofer, and now you can go out to the market. And I know, Alex, you're going to hate it, but you could go sign one of those older veteran guys to a $2 million deal. You've saved $4.5 million against the cap. You've now upped from 15 to 9, and you're able to have some more flexibility, and you've really added to this prospect pool. I think there's some real potential for a deal like that, but it starts with, what's Bobrovsky decide to do? Is he really going to do this, or is this just leverage? And we've got about 2 weeks to decide that. And then secondary on that, what's the situation in Winnipeg? Is Hellebuck really available? And if he is that the spot that he's targeting, is to try to get himself to Florida? Because I do think Florida also has the assets to make a deal with Winnipeg. And if Winnipeg makes Hellebuck available, that might be the rare situation where it would make sense to make #9 available, just straight up for Connor Hellebuck.
Well, then you call Winnipeg and you say, we'll give you Binnington for 8. All right, still getting a great pick.
Bennington at 15 for 8.
There you go. You need a goalie. We got one.
I just
Works
don't think
great
that they
for you.
would.
I'm going to
They're
go
tanking.
out. I was going to say, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they don't need a goalie.
The
at that
goalie
point.
tier right now is probably Hellebuck's going to be the first one that people are after. You've got Bobrovsky, who's the free agent, but I think there's going to be a lot of teams that say, I'm not paying you that many years. I think Bennington's there. Now, Markstrom's name's out there, too. I think Bennington would be above Markstrom in terms of somebody that they would trade for. So, yeah, I mean, I do think there's noise here. I just always go back to, like, the Blues value having 2 goalies that can play, like, 40-something games.
I'll tell you this. I would be super curious to hear what Kyle Connor's availability is if the Winnipeg Jets decide to go in some kind of a legit full rebuild. I know he just re-signed. He's $12 million. He's got a full no-move clause, so he determines what his future is.
Here's the thing that happens when Winnipeg starts to tank. They lose their team in Winnipeg. Like, they're going to get moved to a different city because Gary Bettman's always been looking at that
They've been
spot.
struggling.
Yeah, like they're struggling season ticket holders. Now, if you trade Connor Hellebuck, you are trading the face of your team. It's the only reason you're competitive. So, yeah, you're right. Mark Scheifele's going to start wanting out. Kyle Connor's going to want out. Gabe Velarde's going to. That whole thing starts to fall apart, and an organization is gone, which is why I'm skeptical of them trading Connor Hellebuck.
Same. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. Let's get to this one from the 636. Guys, if you knew he would re-sign with the Cardinals, would you trade Baez, Matthews, and a couple other prospects for Tarek Skubal?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I knew he was re-signing and I got him locked up, yeah.
Yeah, I would give up the farm for him.
That's pushing all the chips in.
That's how good he is. I mean, then that's the guy you're talking about. That would be your number one at the front of your rotation for the next, honestly, decade. And then you compare him with whoever else you think is going to be your number two, and that's the kind of guy that's a stopper and that can change the outlook of a playoff series.
Yeah.
I would not.
Hold on a minute.
But you would trade Baez for an often injured
Baez for
old
Buxton,
center fielder.
but we're not going to trade these guys for Tarek Skubal.
Mm-hmm.
You are clickbait.
What kind of backwards ass theories do you have about this?
Tarek Skubal makes me super nervous.
But Byron Buxton, you're all aboard with.
I'm going to give this dude $40 million for like 10 years. I have no idea what his level of health is going to be in that time. You guys know my philosophy on pitching. I wouldn't pay that kind of money for a pitcher. So this is as much about that as it is anything else. I would just rather bring in, like, I would only, in my scenario, be trading Joshua Baez, and in return, I'm getting what I believe to be one of the best position players in Major League Baseball.
Who's oft injured.
Yes, no doubt. There's risk there, but it's only for a couple of years, and it's a $15 million per year AAV. I still have ultimate flexibility. If I go make this move for Tarek Skubal, that's it. That's my all-in move, and I'm probably already then saying I'm not re-signing one of these guys that I have currently on the roster. Like one of the young players that you like, you're probably not going to be able to keep him here long-term because you made this move for Tarek Skubal. That's the opportunity cost there. So, yeah, I would not go get Tarek Skubal. I don't think he makes sense.
Yeah, I would still do it. And look, I get the hesitation on not paying a pitcher because those guys break. When this guy's healthy, he's the best arm in baseball.
I get it.
None of your pitchers are going to develop into that. Honestly, maybe your position players will not have that good of a war going forward. He changes everything for you, right? If that means I can't pay Walker, I'm okay with that because this guy for the next 3 years while you have Walker under control could be the reason you end up winning a World Series.
From Low Life Dad, would you guys be in on Matt Chapman and or Robbie Ray in a deal with the Giants? Not interested. Robbie Ray, maybe if it's like you strike out on some of these other options that are available for you and he can come in and it's not going to cost you a whole lot.
He's a rental
prospect.
right?
Yeah. He's not great, but he could be your number 4. You put Kyle Leahy into the bullpen. I could see the move there. Chapman I have no interest in because of the contract.
Well, yeah, why would we want to do another Matt Chapman where it's a defensive first, third baseman?
He's got got pop. Like he's not Arenado. He's picked it up. He's got his slug back over 400, and if he can slug over 400 in that ballpark, he'll be fine here.
I'd be very concerned that a 33-year-old that's good turns into Arenado for the next 4 years.
Would I have interest in Chapman? No, because of the term. I'm with you guys. Because I do think he's starting to show signs of decline, and you can end up in the spot you were just in with a declining Arenado.
And pay him to go away.
Yeah. So I don't have interest, unless the Giants ate a ton of money on that deal, which I don't know that they would.
Yeah.
Ray, I'm with you. I have interest, but he's probably not my number one target. If he becomes my fallback, I'm okay with that.
From the 636, guys, simple question here. Why is BK such a hypocrite?
I don't know. He's tough to judge.
Yeah. This is a hard guy to work with. We do it every day.
Every day we talk to him in the office. He's like a box of chocolates. I never know what we're going to get.
Every day he disagrees with our theories, but his theories are right.
From the 314.
Let's put a poll out.
Well, that I know is a constant.
From the 314. Guys, if an expansion draft were to occur this offseason, what player names would be on the Blues exempt list, assuming the same rules as what it was for Vegas or Seattle?
So 6-3-1 is how they do it. 6 forwards, 3 defensemen, 1 goaltender.
Right, so we know the goalie with Hofer.
Broberg, I'd say Mayu and Parayko would be the 3 that I think they'd put on there.
I think so.
And then the forwards, Holloway, Thomas, Snuggerud, Neighbors.
Holloway, Thomas, Snuggerud, Neighbors. Dvorsky.
Yeah, Dvorsky.
Yeah. You can't lose him for nothing.
And then I think they would put Jordan Kyrou on the list.
I do too, because you don't want to lose him for nothing when he's an asset.
Yeah.
And then you would probably end up dealing him.
Correct.
Potentially.
You do the same that you kind of did with, and Schwartz was a free agent, but what the theory was you keep Schwartz and try and do something with it. So yeah, that would be the ones that they'd do, in my opinion.
I think so. I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I don't think there's anybody I would argue.
You probably lose in that scenario? I don't know what the timeline is in terms of how many games he has to play.
Yeah, I don't remember what that was.
Stenberg might be the guy you lose.
Maybe. I think there's a chance that a restarting team would take Booch. Because you have to get to the cap floor, and he's a defensive-minded player that has scored, and he's only 31. I think if it was this, like...
Depends on what the rest of the league does.
Yeah, well, it depends on what else is available to those teams, too. But, like, 31 years old...
Take Benner.
Yeah, took Fleury at the time. It's a good goalie to start with.
I could see that.
I think Benner or Booch would probably be the two areas that you'd look at if you're a team, because you got to get to the cap floor, and if you're going upside for other teams that aren't as expensive players, you do have to get a couple of guys who make some money.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it would be Benner, Booch. Those would be the two guys.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine anybody would go after your fourth line.
I think there's a chance Pius Suter could get selected because that's just a good depth center. I think there's a chance Fowler could go, depending on what defensemen are available.
You got a lot of options.
Yeah. I mean, you got a decent team that I think an expansion team would say, like, this guy gives us a chance to win right away.
Good thing we're not expanding anytime soon.
Yeah, amen to that. Right, Gary?
It's 12:02. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. In 15 minutes, how do the Cardinals and Blues rebuilds compare to one another right now? We'll get into that in just a little bit. But next, Matthew Knies. Is that the ideal trade candidate for the St. Louis Blues this offseason? Talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. It feels too good to be true almost, Alex. Matthew Knies is in his early 20s. He's signed long-term. He doesn't have no trade protection right now. And it sure sounds as though he's available from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, there are reasons for this. Toronto has put itself into quite a bind. They need to prove to Austin Matthews within the next year, we are a Stanley Cup contender. Now, doing so without Matthew Knies seems difficult, but they don't really have flexibility. Their trade assets are Austin Matthews, William Nylander, John Tavares.
Who I don't even think is a trade asset.
I'm not so sure either, but those are kind of the guys, and they've all got no trade protection, so you can't move them for maximum return.
Right.
And so this gets you into the spot where you kind of have to listen on a guy like Matthew Knies, despite the fact that he's one of your best young pieces, probably your best young piece. Here is one of the top insiders in Toronto, Nick Kypreos, yesterday on his radio show on Sportsnet, talking about the situation that the Toronto Maple Leafs find themselves in and why he believes that Matthew Knies is legitimately available right now via trade.
You can have an argument that you're not going to get better than Matthew Knies, but if you can turn Matthew Knies into 3 pieces.
Oh, I don't want your quarters for my dollar. So you think that someone's going to say, yeah, we'll give you our top pair D for Matthew Knies?
Possibly. And a first rounder.
Ooh.
And a secondary player.
I need to hear about this top pair D who's available.
Listen, I don't know what it
Brock
is,
Faber.
but that's the type of conversation
Okay.
that they're having. You are inviting upwards of 20 teams to bid on him, and you're going to get someone that may overbid. A quality player in return, a pick this draft that could be 10, 11, 12, and a third piece.
Okay.
That's how they're looking. If they move him in the next few days,
Yeah.
it's to get back into that draft outside of McKenna.
I mean,
The dude brought up Brock Faber. That's not happening. Come on, buddy.
Of course.
Come on, buddy.
But Kypreos, who's actually in the know out of the people that were just talking.
Oh, shots fired.
No, that was their producer. Like,
That's like Tanner talking. Come on, man.
Hey, I'm the producer of the room
You
here.
sit back down there, okay?
So Justin Bourne, who's the other guy on this show,
Correct.
I think they do. First of all, I think they do an awesome job. Second of all, he was me, where we had the conversation about Robert Thomas, and you were like, "No, listen, it kind of makes some sense." And I'm like, "I'm not taking your pieces for my good player. No, stop it." But I get where they're coming from. It makes some sense given where their situation is. It sucks that you've backed yourself into this corner,
Right.
but now what are you going to do? It sounded as though he was describing what the Blues could offer.
Yeah.
He said 10 or 11 or 12 in the draft. Well, the Blues have 11. Top pair defensemen. Well, the Blues have Colton Parayko and another player or prospect, which the Blues have a lot of right now. Are the Blues the ideal trade candidate for Matthew Knies? And is he the ideal trade player for the Blues to acquire at this point?
So for the latter question, he's the ideal player that I would be trading for because 23, big body, power forward, plays with grit. There's this narrative that I've seen on social media of, oh, he's just a product of Austin Matthews. Guys, Austin Matthews is not a playmaker. Austin Matthews is a goal scorer. Yes, he scored 29 goals 2 years ago playing on a line with Mitch Marner. But what do we think Robert Thomas is? Just chopped liver? Like, that's a playmaker. We just saw what he can do when he's on his game, whether he's playing with Jimmy Snuggerud or Dylan Holloway. Matthew Knies is, in my opinion, a guaranteed 30-goal scorer on this team. That is my...
I wouldn't put it in... I wouldn't say guaranteed. He scored 23 last year with Toronto, but he's a guy that gets you to 60-plus points.
23 with Toronto that didn't have Mitch Marner, who played on a line without a playmaker.
I understand. If he's playing on your second line and he's with Dvorsky potentially, I wouldn't write it in pen that this is a 40-goal producer.
I think if you're bringing this guy in, he's one of your top line players, even with the chemistry that you built of Holloway and Snuggerud. Cool. But however you want to view it, this would be a top target.
Very good, and he's 24.
He fits your core, and he's locked up long term. He's making, $8 million? Like, it's a really good deal for the Blues if they could do that. Now, the other part of your question of are the Blues the top team that can make the trade, that one I don't know. I believe Colton Parayko is a top pair defenseman. He plays like one. People don't give him enough credit because he doesn't put up enough goals. From the Toronto perspective, I think if you're trading Matthew Knies, you need to be getting a young defenseman that looks like a top pair. Like, I'm thinking in the minds of, like, if the Maple Leafs are in this position, you heard him mention Brock Faber. That's not happening. Brant Clark from the LA Kings, Simone Nemec from the New Jersey Devils, Vancouver with Zeev Buium, who was traded for Quinn Hughes. That, to me, is what, like, a team in the shoes of Toronto saying, well, let's trade a top pair defenseman. I don't think the top pair defenseman is the key in this return. Like, it's a big part of it. I think what Kiprio said of getting back into the draft after McKenna, meaning, like, try and get to the top 10 or as close to it as possible, that's the desired spot, because John Chayka is the one that's running this draft right now. He's an analytics guy. He's looking at this group saying, yes, we want to keep Austin Matthews here, but we also have to plan it as if Matthews does decide to leave, and you want to restock the cupboard. So I think the Blues are in the really good position in terms of we've got a defenseman who is a top pair guy, just doesn't profile the same as a Cale Makar or a Quinn Hughes. But more importantly, we've got a draft pick that gets you close to the top 10.
Okay, so let's go through this real quick, because you're right. I think the top asset that they're probably looking for is one of those top 10 selections. Let's go through these picks that are in the top 10 and consider, do these teams have more than what the Blues have to offer?
Okay.
San Jose.
No.
They have the number 2 pick.
That's a lot.
Is that a better asset than number 11 plus Parayko? I'm truly asking. If you're the Maple Leafs, would you rather have number 2 or number 10 or number 11 plus Parayko?
I'd rather have number 2, because I could draft Chase Reed and Gavin McKenna. I would rather have 2.
Or you could have Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg.
Correct. So I would rather have 2 in that scenario. I don't think San Jose does that,
That's
though.
what I was going to ask as a follow-up is, do you think that would make more sense for San Jose?
No, because I would rather, if I'm San Jose, draft Ivar Stenberg, who's in the same age frame as Macklin Celebrini, who might have a higher ceiling than Matthew Knies, but also I'd rather have the chance to draft a top pair defenseman.
And he's cheaper.
Yes.
So if I'm San Jose, I agree with you, Alex. I wouldn't make this move.
Correct.
I do think that, though, if San Jose makes number 2 available, that is something that the Blues cannot compete with.
I agree with that.
Number 3 overall, Vancouver. We can all agree that doesn't make sense for Vancouver, right?
Yeah, no.
Number 4, Chicago. Now, that is a team that I could see doing this.
They don't have the top pair defenseman, though.
They have number 4.
4 is a really good piece, but I think you're...
What if Chase Reed's there?
I think 4 might still be better than what you have to offer.
But if you're trading Knies, I feel like you're going to have to take a forward to replace that.
Maybe not. Like, you can find a winger to eventually replace him. We've talked about this
$7
before.
million now to move.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and I mean, they have top prospects that you can trade. They've got Lavushnov, who's really good for them. They've got Sam Rinzel. They probably would be a much more desirable trade candidate than the Blues.
I think Chicago makes a ton of sense.
Chicago was the one that was rumored to be involved with them at the deadline. Now, remember, he was almost traded to Montreal, if not for Montreal sucking at paperwork and not getting it in on time. And that was 2 first-round picks, a top prospect, which is probably a defenseman, and Zarkovsky, who's playing in the KHL. So that was the deal that was on the table.
Number 5 is New York, the Rangers.
I don't think that makes sense.
I don't think that one makes a whole lot of sense.
Would Fox waive his no move?
Not to go to Toronto.
You sure?
He's an American, and on top of that, like, I don't think Toronto's in a better spot to play.
Red-blooded American.
He's
not going to Toronto.
I mean, let's be honest. What is
Austin Matthews, my teammate from Team USA.
Well, let's be honest. What has the Team USA players been doing? Playing with other guys. And sure, you could say Austin Matthews. For how long?
For 2 more years. He's only got 3 years left on his deal.
Until Austin Matthews has a bad season and goes to Toronto and says, I want out.
I hear you.
I'm an American. What are you talking about?
Adam Fox is a much better asset than Colton Parayko. And the number 5 overall pick is a much better asset than number 11. So I would put the Rangers.
I would, but I don't think Fox waives it there, and I think that kills the deal because just for 5 is not good enough.
And here's the other thing. If you're the Rangers, does he make sense for you? Matthew Knies.
I mean, Matthew Knies is kind of Alexis Lafreniere, just with more production. But if you're the Rangers...
There's a lot of talk of them potentially moving Trocheck this offseason.
Yeah, the thing with the Rangers is, like, it's just a lateral move. You're trading a guy that runs your entire defensive core for a guy that just doesn't work unless you have centers on your team. It works if you're trying to rebuild, but I think if I'm the Rangers, I'd rather have the 5th overall pick.
I'm going to keep them on the list just in case. Number 6, Calgary. Nope. Number 7, Seattle. Makes all the sense
You know
in the
what,
world.
though? Calgary's got a pretty decent top prospect defenseman.
Well, why would they make that move?
That's the thing. I don't think you would, because you're making your team worse, and I'd rather have the 6th overall.
He's expensive. He's a little older than the prospects that you could get with the number 6 overall selection.
I'm just saying,
rather
if
have
Calgary wanted him, they could make that trade, because 6 and Zane Perrick is a better deal than what the Blues would have to offer at 11 in Parayko. But I'm with you on, I don't think Calgary does that.
Okay, 7 is Seattle. They're a team that would absolutely be interested.
But they don't.
I don't know what they're doing.
7's not enough to get it done, and you don't have a defenseman.
Shane Wright plus 7.
No. If I'm Toronto, I say no.
Okay.
Because I don't know what Shane Wright is, and I'd rather have Parayko in 11 than Shane Wright in 7.
Is that the best offer that Seattle could make?
Probably.
What about Beniers?
Beniers is a really good one. You're bringing the center in, which I think is a cover for that would probably be a better deal, because Beniers in 7, you could draft a defenseman, and I've got coverage for if Austin Matthew leaves. That's a better deal.
Okay. So I'll put them on the list.
Yeah. But
Winnipeg, 8, not doing it.
No. And I'm going down the path of, like, Kyprios is talking about a defenseman there. But if we're going down that premise, then sure.
Florida, 9, they can't make it happen cap-wise. Nashville
money.
at 10. That's the other team that's in front of you right now in the draft. Do they have a better offer than what the Blues could potentially put on the table?
They don't have a center that I think is better. I mean, they have Philip Forsberg, who, to me, that's a lateral move if you're Nashville. They've got Roman Josi, who's a top flight
full no move
defenseman. Yeah, he's got a full move, and on top of it,
I don't think he's moving.
He's 35
at this point in his career, 36 years old.
Yeah, I think 11 in Parayko would be better than 10 in Josi.
Nicholas Hague?
No, that's not a top. Parayko's a better player.
Okay.
And I was the president of the Nicholas Hague fan club for the longest time, but Parayko's a better defenseman, and if we're splitting hairs on one selection difference.
The reason I wanted to do this is because this gives you kind of the idea of where the Blues are in the pecking order of best assets to potentially trade. San Jose has a better asset, but they don't seem likely to move that asset. Chicago, I think, just flat out has better assets than you. The Rangers do, but I'm not sure that it makes sense. And Seattle does, but I'm not sure that they have the kind of pieces that they would be willing to move in the event that they were getting this kind of a deal. Because Matty Beniers, I agree with you, Alex. I think he's probably the kind of asset the Blues don't have.
Correct.
But if you're Seattle, I'm getting Matthew Knies to pair with Matty Beniers, ideally. Like, that would be the duo that I'm now building around. Shane Wright is the piece that I would want to move in this kind of a deal.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's the kind of piece that is good enough for the Maple Leafs to make it work.
And honestly, Seattle, it doesn't make sense to trade Matty Beniers for Matthew Knies, because Beniers is the center, and that's the top commodity you want. And Beniers is young. He's locked up. Like, that's your number one guy. So it doesn't make sense for the Kraken to do that move. To me, that makes them worse.
I think if you're looking for teams that make the most sense to make this move, it's Chicago and St. Louis. I think those are the two that are in the top 11 that could really make this work. Now, if you want to go to 12, New Jersey has some interesting assets as well.
And Heischer in 12.
But in particular, Nimich.
Correct.
Nimich plus 12 and maybe a prospect or something.
Correct. And I do think the Rangers, if Fox is willing to waive his no move to go there, that is a better package. I just don't believe he's willing to move. So
Werenski plus 14.
Columbus would be stupid to do that unless
what if he's asking out?
Well, that's the thing. If they know he's gone, then yeah, I probably am doing. I don't even think you'd have to put 14 in that. I think you just give Werenski to him. I mean, if I'm Toronto, hell yeah. But if I'm Toronto, I need to know he's going to resign with me before I do something like that. So that's a better package than anybody's got to offer. But I don't think either side would do it because it doesn't help either side.
After going through the different packages that might be available out there, how realistic do you think it is for the Blues to be the team that goes out there and makes a big, aggressive move to acquire Matthew Knies this offseason?
I would, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, yeah, it for sure will happen, I'd put it at like a 4 or a 5. Like, I think there's a realistic chance if this guy's available that they call about it. I mean, they're not afraid to try and trade Parayko. I think Parayko would be willing to waive a no trade to go there because it's close to home for him. I think Kairu's another option in this one as well. But if they're looking for defensemen, that's where they're probably going to turn with this. It just really comes down to, do the Blues want to give up the defenseman to get a guy? Do they think that guy can be another star to play with this team? And does Toronto value Colton Parayko as a top pair defenseman? So there's a lot of ifs in this, but I mean, I'd put it at a 4 or a 5 in terms of realism that this could happen.
My guess is the Blues will call. My guess is the Blues will be in the negotiations. Like, if there's real traction here, I bet you there's an update at some point within the next week that says teams that have called and are interested in Matthew Knies include Chicago, St. Louis, and maybe like Columbus, Detroit, other teams.
And Montreal's going to revisit this because they nearly had the deal done. So, but the Montreal package is what tells me it's like, hey, there's a realistic chance that this could go down.
I think it's about a 4. I don't think it's particularly likely because I think there's other teams that can give more. But if they decide not to, and if Chicago's just like in love with Chase Reed, maybe they decide, hey, screw that. We're not going to go get this guy. We're going to get the defenseman that we think can be a number 1 defenseman for us. And now we've got a number 1 center or number 1 forward with Bedard, and we've got a number 1 defenseman. That's what we're building around for the next 10 years. I could see that scenario as well, but I think it's possible. I don't think it's particularly likely that the Blues end up going this direction. But Matthew Knies' name and his inclusion on the trade market makes this offseason that much more interesting in the NHL.
Dr. Xander does bring up a good point on the YouTube chat. He says if you do that trade, then you don't have the assets to get Louis DeBrusk or Jake DeBrusk from Vancouver. And he's not wrong. So DeBrusk, Knies.
We got to get that St. Louis one, right, PK?
Yeah, got to get that guy that can help with the roofing issues.
To be fair, you would still have 15.
Oh, my God. Now you want to trade for Knies and DeBrusk?
Bring both in. Let's add
I'll
that
ask
grid.
the same question that I asked the Curves. Where are all these wingers playing?
Right, T-Bone coming up next. How do the Cardinals and Blues rebuilds compare at this point in time? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Alex, I was listening to the Fast Lane the other day, and they were talking about the Cardinals versus the Blues, where they're both at in their respective rebuilds. And I think we've kind of gone back and forth on this in the past of, well, how do they compare? Which team is closer to where they ultimately want to be? And for most of the last few years, it's been a very clear, well, the Blues are far beyond where the Cardinals are at. So I found their answer interesting to this question. This comes from their Sports Six-Pack the other day.
Which franchise future are you more excited for? Is it the Cardinals or the Blues? Who do you think reaches their respective finals first?
Cardinals
T-Bone.
right now are.
Come on, T-Bone! My bad, that's my bad. Who do you think they're going to say?
Cardinals.
I'm being serious. Who do you think they're going to say?
If you would have asked me before I heard what happened there, I would say the Cardinals.
You thought they were going to say Cardinals are further along. T-Bone, what would
it's not
be
even
your
further
guess?
along because the question was asked excited
Which one
about.
you're more excited about in the future?
And I think the Cardinals would get that answer because of what they're doing.
Well, I would think Cardinals, but I think they might lean Blues.
Okay, let's take
Why?
a
Because
listen.
who do they have on their
Blues.
show?
What?
Who do they have on their show?
I have a former Blues defenseman, and a Blues analyst pre and post. So
Okay.
I would lean they go Blues.
Let's take a listen.
Cardinals right now are a playoff team.
Yeah.
Blues were not a playoff team at any point last year.
I think I gotta go with the Cardinals as well. Like
Yeah.
I think they have more
Spoiler.
players that are showing the ability to step up and maybe not reach their ceiling just yet. Hopefully this isn't their ceiling, but they are playing very good.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals are doing what the Blues have talked about. You saw steps in the right direction at the end of the season. Problem is, Cardinals have given you steps in the right direction since Chaim Bloom has taken over.
Well, Kerry, this is supposed to be the worst year of this rebuild, and they're the fourth best team in the National League and the sixth best team in Major League Baseball. It's supposed to be better than this? Give me the Cardinals.
Isn't this just the Blues last year?
Yeah.
Like, isn't this everything that they just said? Isn't that exactly what we were saying in the second half of the Blues season from a year ago?
Yeah, when the Blues went on the run to make the playoffs, when Jim Montgomery took over, we were saying the exact same thing that we're saying about the Cardinals right now. Am
I missing something? Like, we're all in agreement there, right?
Because Jordan
I think
Walker...
where it's a little different is the fact that it's happening from the get-go. Like, I think the thing that was different about the Blues was, I remember we were talking about them
but it
being
was a fresh
sellers
start
at the
once
deadline.
Monty stepped in.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't take off right away when Monty took over. It took Camp Monty from the Four Nations break. So I think that's where it's a little different is this is happening early on to where you don't maybe you have a long-term question about it, but you're not questioning it as much in the early part of the season because you're seeing your best players be your best players that you were expecting.
See, I don't look at the timeliness of it. I look at what the individual players are doing. Like, you've got an MVP candidate in Jordan Walker on that run that they went on. I mean, whether it was Dylan Holloway or Robert Thomas, you were like, holy hell, where's this coming from? The top prospects that you were waiting to see, Josh Baez, Jimmy Snuggerud was that at the end of the season on top of Adam
I would say
Jiricek.
Jimmy Snuggerud is basically the equivalent of like J.J. Weatherholtz almost, right?
Yeah, where you were waiting for it. But even beyond that, with Baez and Rodriguez, Adam Jiricek and Dalibor Dvorsky and Justin Carbonneau, you look at the complementary pieces with it was Broberg and all of these guys developing. You know, you look at the pitching and thinking like, oh, wow, they found it. Joel Hofer, the goaltender. Like, I think all of the pieces that you're looking at are eerily similar, and I do think there's a chance that the Cardinals next year could be what the Blues were this past year.
So what's the lesson from that? Because I agree with you. I think there's a real chance that the Cardinals next year look very similar to what this year's Blues were. And I don't think that's inherently like a bad thing or a problem for them. But what does that mean for this season? Because the Blues, and we're talking about the year that they went to the playoffs, lost in the first round because there was a second left on the clock and they allowed that goal at 6-on-1, right? Like, Winnipeg ultimately moves on to the next round. If the Blues had moved on, if they just didn't allow that last goal, we'd all look back at that pretty fondly. That season and what took place and what they were able to accomplish.
Do you, not to interrupt you there, do you think
Please.
we'd still be looking at it fondly if this season happened the way it did, if they went to the second round last year and lost?
I think it would give you more to lean back on.
More hope.
Where you're like, yeah, it was a
Little
bad
bit more.
year, but at least you got to the second round the year prior. And who knows what happens in the second round? They probably would have lost.
Okay.
But you just don't know how that round would have gone, and maybe they would have taken it to 7 or something, right? Even if they do lose, do they give you a real fighting chance once they get there? For the Cardinals this year, like, is the lesson there not to take this for granted? because you never know what lies ahead? Or is the lesson there like, hey, the Blues thought they were further along than they were, and they took a step back the next year, which is exactly why you shouldn't be giving up assets at the trade deadline, because you might actually still be in the midst of that rebuild. Like, what's the lesson from the Blues for that Cardinals?
I think it should be both. And I don't know if it can be both, but to me, like you describing both of those options, like, yes, do not take this for granted. That doesn't mean just push everything in and try and capitalize on it now. But don't take it for granted, because it could look very different next year, which is also the be patient mindset, which I know people don't like, but like what the Blues did.
Hey, man, we're not doing that no more.
I know. But like what the Blues did, I mean, I can't sit here and be hypocritical. I was steamheading the Blues are going to be better this year, and they weren't. So, like, yes, don't take it for granted, but you also have to understand this thing can hit a bump at some point, and you feel further back than where you originally thought you were. So I think it has to be both of those scenarios with this season.
I think you don't take it for granted, right? I just think this idea that you think you can build in any professional sport is just false. Name a build that's gone exactly the way a team pictured it would go. I mean, it's hard to pick one, right? I mean, the Blues would have thought they were done with the rebuilding thing, and immediately were shot right back into another rebuild. And I think the same can be said across baseball, right? Baltimore thought, well, we're going to have this run with all these prospects. They've had like one good year, and they never figured it out. Boston thought they were going to have their moment. They haven't been able to figure it out. I think when you have a year, whether it ends up being a surprise or it goes to plan of we thought we were going to be contender and we are a contender, you should capitalize on it. Now, I do think there are different kind of avenues as to how much you should really push chips in, because I agree, the Cardinals are not in a spot where they should go all in, but they're also not the best team in the National League, right? That's typically when you should have that conversation. They're a wild card team. They're not the best in their division, but they should definitely try bolstering this team enough to give themselves a fighting chance when they get to October to see if they can pull off some surprises.
Dr. Xander over on YouTube said, but we know what the Blues did that next year. The Cardinals haven't done that yet. Why are we comparing a real year with a pretend year? The reason is because you just don't know what the next year will entail. Mm-hmm. For the Blues, I remember we had a lot of, I remember when we were out at Enterprise Center, Alex, going into that opening night.
Yeah.
And we did our segment of our intrusive thoughts. What are your fears going into this season? And we had mentioned, there are some reasons to be a little skeptical that, hey, what if that second half wasn't real? What if Jimmy Snuggerud has a bit of a second-year slump? What if you don't have the same chemistry among that top line? What if you run into injuries that can derail this thing? All of these things are real possibilities. And for the Cardinals, if we were to be honest about, hey, what are your intrusive thoughts about the future of this Cardinals build? Not just where they are today, but what it's going to mean for the long term. My intrusive thoughts would be hey, are they going to be able to figure this pitching out to a degree that's better than what it is right now, where they're not just average? Are there legitimate front end of the rotation starters coming? Or are all of those guys more of what you have? Because Dobbins kind of looks like more of what you have, which is not a bad thing. Cost-controlled mid-back end of the rotation starters are valuable. Quinn Matthews might be something similar to that. We don't know on Liam Doyle what he's ultimately going to become. But right now, down in your system, there's not a whole lot that would suggest, yeah, this guy's a number one or a number two on a contender. Other things that would be considered, to me, some of those intrusive thoughts, is this the best that it gets? For Weatherholt, for Walker, for Burleson, for Herrera. Does it get worse from here instead of better? It's very possible. And so you look at all of this, and it would be the reason that I'm with T-Bone in that they've said all along, yes, we're not going to build for the right now. We're building for the future. They have also said we will concede nothing. And right now, the concede nothing part to me would say this team has earned the right to bolster itself at the deadline. And that doesn't mean going all in. I feel like we've gone into this mode of, well, it's all in or sell. Well, no, there's a lot of gray area in between those two things. You could go trade for Casey Mize, who's on an expiring deal, is nobody's idea of a number one starting pitcher, but is better than most of what you have in your rotation right now, would maybe be their second best starter for the Cardinals. And I don't think you have to give up a Joshua Baez or a Rainiel Rodriguez. You might give up one of your lower level prospects for him, the 10 to 20 range of your current system. So why can't you go do something like that? Why couldn't you go out there and, maybe add one more bat or somebody that can help you in center field? I think they could do all of those things. So that's why, to me, I would use that season from the Blues as a reason to continue to build this thing for now. Not to like completely derail your future plans, but to try to make this team as good as possible for 2026 without doing so.
And I think Army, when you look back on that year that they did, remember Army tried to sell, I think, and he wasn't able to make it happen. And I think that was ultimately the best thing that happened for him.
Tried to move Chen.
I think if he sold Chen, I don't think they would have made the playoffs. I think
agree
that
with you.
they may have still been able to make that
No, I
push to
don't
get
think so.
close, but I don't think they make it.
I think they fall off and they start losing because, remember, they also didn't have Colton Parayko at that time, too.
And I think that's where, like, though he wasn't the quote-unquote buyer that we talk about with the Cardinals, he kind of bought by not selling.
And there was talk about buying right before the Parayko injury.
We talked about going to find the
Parayko got
defenseman.
hurt, and then it was like, okay, well, you can't really buy now. By the way, Splashback Deuce says on the YouTube chat, you just don't know, so go with pessimism.
Well, glass half full versus glass half empty. What did Mike Schill tell
say,
us?
well, you're not going to live longer than him.
You just don't know, which
Why
means
not?
I know what I have now. I don't know what the future is going to hold. I didn't know what the future was going to hold for Baltimore. I didn't know what the future was going to hold for the Chicago Cubs. I didn't know what the future was going to hold for the Toronto
Look at the Padres.
Blue Jays.
Yeah. Padres didn't think their build was over yet.
And so when you don't know what the future is going to hold, and I do know what I have currently, I'm building for what I know. I currently know the Cardinals are good. What level of good? I don't know. We can all have our different opinions on that. And I'm sure we all have various opinions on it. But for right now, this is a good baseball team, and that is representative by their record, by the run differential, by the quality of the bats that are in the top 5 now of your lineup, by what you're getting out of the top 2 in your rotation, and really the entirety of the bullpen for the most part. It's a good baseball team. And to me, I'm not conceding that. I'm not just sitting here saying, yeah, but we said before the season we were building for 2028, not 2026. Therefore, we have to stick to that plan that we determined prior to seeing any of this. Well, you've seen it now. We've seen almost half of the year. This is a good baseball team. I'm not conceding that. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer.
Did you need more there? I thought that was a good ending.
You always want to finish the segment with the final word. I didn't think you wanted one of us to jump in. I know,
that was one of those moments where I was like, I'm going to give them the final word if they want it. And then I realized it would be best if we don't do that.
This will make you feel better. I agree, Brandon.
Me too.
Hell yeah. Coming up in 15 minutes, junk drawer. But next, this is the stretch of the schedule where the Cardinals really need to take advantage to be able to build things up. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals fell to the Padres yesterday 6-1, but they take 2 of 3 from San Diego. And tonight they head out to Kansas City to start a 3-game set with the Royals. 6:40 will be first pitch. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for St. Louis. Noah Cameron will get the start for Kansas City. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So we've talked about this stretch of games for the Cardinals in the past, Alex. They've mostly taken advantage of it. They've done a pretty good job against some of these, lower-level opponents that are on their schedule. You continue that tonight with Kansas City. My beloved Royals are awful. They're no good. They're very bad. They can't hit. And one of their best players is now on the injured list.
Don't lose a game.
You've got Noah Cameron on the mounds tonight. That is a guy who was a classic Cardinals starter. If John Mozeliak was still in charge of the Cardinals, I bet you they would have traded for Noah Cameron in the offseason, in fact. Doesn't strike anybody out, gets deep into games, you kind of know what you're getting with him.
I love vanilla ice cream.
Throws the kitchen sink at you. He throws a little bit of everything. Now, he's a little better than Noah Cameron, but he's also had some pretty bad starts this season as well, where the opposition has been able to get to him. So that's a bit of a mixed bag. This is a series that you should win at least 2 out of 3 in. And then you take on Arizona, and as we mentioned yesterday, the Cardinals have done a really good job so far this season on beating the other teams that are in the mix for a wild card spot. That's one of those teams. Miami, same thing, in that mix with you. And the reason why this 10-game stretch is so significant is because of what lies ahead. Where we talked about this with Derek Gould the other day. Boy, starting June 30th and going up to the All-Star break, things get difficult. 3 at Atlanta, 3 at the Cubs, 5 consecutive games in 4 days against the Milwaukee Brewers, and then you finish out the first half of the season with 3 more games at home against the Atlanta Braves. Boy, howdy, it's going to be tough to finish out the first half. So you've got to build up as much goodwill and as much of a cushion in this wild card race as humanly possible before you get there. Because, man, it's going to be a sprint to the deadline right when you get out of the All-Star break. And the Cardinals don't have a whole lot of runway here to be able to get themselves into the positioning that they want to be in for the standings. Because if they're in a playoff spot, I think Chaim Bloom will add. If they're not, though, it's going to be hard to convince him that you need to do so at the trade deadline when you have, I think it's 15 games, 10 or 15 games prior to the deadline once you get out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, every time a team decides what their path is going to be, there's always a series or 2 series or a game that you point to. Like I remember Doug Armstrong has referenced games in the past where it's like, yep, that's when I knew this team was a seller. That's when I knew this team was a buyer. I think when Chaim Bloom will make his decision is that Brewers series. And I know that's a weird thing to say because the Brewers just seem to be night and day better than everybody. I think if you find a way to win 3 of 5 against Milwaukee, that's where Chaim looks at it and says, okay, we may have something that can do their job and make this a special season. And it's not taking anything away from Atlanta, because I think if you lose both series to Atlanta, then that probably tells them a different path. But I'm going down the premise of you win a series versus Atlanta, you lose a series versus Atlanta, you beat the Chicago Cubs. I think if you take 3 of 5 against Milwaukee for how elite that pitching is, it's going to tell you, all right, our offense is real from top to bottom. If your pitching can go out there and keep that team that just can take advantage of any team's pitching staff so well, I think that's going to tell you where you're at in terms of exposing it or maybe needing to add on to it. I think if you take 3 of 5 against Milwaukee, that will be the decision from the front office that says, all right, this is the series where we're ready to buy.
Got some news for you. Jeff Jones on Twitter saying, source with direct knowledge tells him that the Cardinals are calling up
Gastelum.
Max Rajcic to make his major league debut in Kansas City. He will replace Chris Roycroft on the active roster. 40-man machination still TBD, but Rajcic will have to be added and a spot will have to be opened on that 40-man. Rajcic was a 6th-round pick in 2022. He was the minor league pitcher of the year in 23 and transitioned to the bullpen this season, where he has posted a 2.9 ERA with 46 strikeouts in 40 innings. Max Rajcic is the player that has been added to the Cardinals roster. Alex, we talked about this a little bit earlier today. I was wondering if maybe they would go with Bryson Motts to give them length today and then call up Rajcic tomorrow. They decided to just go ahead and go with the latter. What do you make of the move to go to do this today instead of waiting for it?
It's aggressive, and I like this team's aggressiveness. I like this team's look at their roster and saying, we need to fill this spot. Our bullpen has struggled at times. Let's go bring a guy in who can settle things down and give us a fresh arm. This is another aggressive move to add to the Pajes decision, the Sajaci decision, the Victor Scott decision. They immediately said, we need to go get something different. We've tried Fernandez, hasn't really worked. Roycroft hasn't worked. Can't do Swanson. Let's go get another arm to see what this kid's got.
Yeah, I like it. I like the fact that they're willing to churn through it, right? I mean, it's a bullpen arm. And now the fact that it may not be Roycroft that gets DFA just tells you they're probably protecting their depth. My guess is it's probably Prieto would be the one that they DFA, because I don't know that there's another guy on the 40-man that they'd be willing to lose potentially through waivers.
That's what I was wondering. Is Pozo on the 40-man?
He's on the 40-man. They might consider Pozo, but they may hang on to him just as a right-handed depth bat that they could keep as well. But I like the fact that they're willing to try this. I'm a little surprised it's not Gastelum, but one of these two I wanted to see, right? Yeah. I wanted to see a fresher face, see if you get some upside here, see what he looks like. He's not going to need to be in high leverage right away, but see if he can work his way there. And like I said at the time when we talked about Motts, I didn't really think they needed length out of their bullpen. So I like the fact that they're willing to go with a guy that could come in and pitch an inning or two at a time.
Yeah, it's from the 618. This comes on the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Are we willing to say at this point that the 40-man roster doesn't dictate moves any longer? It still dictates some moves. Like, the reason why Roycroft got the opportunities that he did is because he was on the 40-man roster. But I don't think it's as much of a detriment to making aggressive moves as it once was. That's the way that I would look at this. Like, I now think they are willing to go to players that are off of the 40-man in the event that they just flat out outproduce the guys that are currently on it. And so they're not going to be as inflexible with that stuff, which is a great sign. Like, it is so refreshing that, man, they're just operating like a normal, competent, well-run organization. And there have been so many times in the past where that has not been the case for the Cardinals. So the fact that they're doing this now, it makes a ton of sense. Now, with Rajcic, he's really interesting because it has not been great lately for him. And this is one of the reasons that I was wondering if maybe they would go to Gastelum instead. Now, I don't know how much of this is like minor league baseball can be weird. So was this just, hey, a couple of hits went in and they dropped that you wouldn't expect to hear? But a week ago, he had back-to-back games in which he went 2 innings, allowed 3 hits, gave up 4 earned runs, and then the next game went 1 inning, gave up 3 hits and 2 earned runs. Last 2 outings have been much better, but I'm very curious to see what it looks like up here at the major league level, because this is a piece that could legitimately be in the Cardinals bullpen for the next 3 years. That would not be surprising if it all goes as planned for him.
Yeah, I mean, either way, if you go with Rajcic or you went with Gastelum, they're showing you that if we have guys performing, we are going to get them and pick them and put them on the roster right away. I was just hoping for Gastelum, but it seems like Rajcic's strikeout numbers have been pretty decent for them. So you're just adding more swing and miss stuff to your bullpen, which I think is important right now. So either decision was good. It's just they're showing you that they're not going to wait around until, they feel like we have to do this. They say we have to do it immediately.
And this potentially as well, depending on how he pitches and if they eventually try Gastelum here in the near term.
My guess is they will.
I think they will as well. I wonder if also he wasn't available because he threw 30 pitches 2 days ago. That could also be part of the equation here. This also decides if you maybe want to go after another bullpen arm at the deadline or not, right?
Or get a starter and put Leahy in the bullpen.
Yeah, let's try our internal options first. Let's get enough of a sample size to figure out if we need to make an upgrade or move Leahy to the pen to help us out. And if these guys pitch well, great. We just check something off of our checklist at the potential trade deadline if we're going to be buyers.
Yeah, I like the way they're operating. It seems like every weekend they're adding new pieces to this roster. And it continues the roster churn, which is healthy for a Cardinals team. Is not getting stale the way that I think it did at times in the past where they just allow it to die on the vine. When a guy shows, hey, he can't get the job done here, they go to somebody that can. And sometimes it's not going to work. Like, it's possible Rajcic comes up and he's worse than what Roycroft was or what Fernandez was. It's entirely possible. But he might be a lot better. And so I try my chance with this. If it doesn't work, you get him 2 or 3 opportunities here and it looks bad. Well, you send him back down and you make another 40-man move, and that's when Gastelum gets his chance. I like the way they're turning through this roster.
Real quick, we just spent the last segment talking about, the comparisons with the rebuild of the Cardinals and the Blues. Is Chaim Bloom operating more like Doug Armstrong now? Because I think
explain to me what you mean.
Aggressive, like willing to be aggressive on decisions for the team. Because Army at his peak, and I know in the last few years people probably don't feel as good about it, but at his peak, when he sees something that doesn't work, he'll go out there and make a trade to bring something in. I know these aren't trades versus roster moves, and roster moves are different in hockey than baseball.
Yeah.
But the big thing with Mo was always he's not aggressive. And people would always say Army's better than Mo because he's aggressive. Chaim this season has been aggressive in every step of the way with his team.
I wouldn't be willing to go there yet because I think it comes down to what he does when it comes to actual trades that impact the Major League roster. Because I think the supplement
impact the Major League roster shows it, but he showed it in the offseason too.
Sure,
he made difficult decisions, especially with Brendan Donovan.
Decisions that Mo wouldn't make.
I think those ones were a little easier and clear to make. You can argue on Donnie.
Contreras was. I think Sonny was. I do not think Donnie was an obvious one.
I think if you were going to sell this
as
him at third. We're going into a rebuild, I think it made sense to trade Donnie.
I think Mo would have kept him there. Easily kept him and played him at third.
I view that as these made sense that they were. If you're going to come in and say we're going into a rebuild, you make those moves no matter what.
But that wasn't a guarantee.
I think it was. I think if you're going to enter into a rebuild, it always made sense to trade Brendan Donovan because he didn't match your timeline.
But he could have. I mean, he does every bit as much as
and they could have played it out till he was expensive in free agency and then moved him right before.
Or waited a year.
Yeah.
This is where I disagree. I think it made all the sense in the world that you move him the moment you entered into a rebuild.
Obviously, I agree with you. I campaigned all offseason that I thought it was the move they should make, but if they were going to go about it that way, I've got to give them credit for making the move that was necessary, and not all GMs would have made that move.
It's still an aggressive move because he said we're deficient in our pipeline and we need to go fix that pipeline. I mean, it's kind of the equivalent of what Army did with Bolduc.
And he got creative with it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just hey, Seattle can't make this move. They don't have the pieces that we're looking for on their own. We're going to have to include a third team in this deal, so we go get Tampa Bay involved. So I don't know. I think you've got to give them at least a little bit of credit for that one. The reason that I'm not willing to go there just yet with Chaim is because I don't know what this deadline's going to look like. I will say this. If they decide to add at the trade deadline, that is very Army-like in that his roster will tell him what to do. Army always says, it's not a me decision. It's they will perform. Mm-hmm. And if they perform at a level where they show me and prove to everybody that they're worthy of going out and making additions, well, then I'll go do that.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then we're going to go the opposite direction. So if that's the case, I think that would show. What I have seen, though, and this is from Chaim and from Ollie, is that they have clearly adjusted the way that they are operating with this team based upon their performance. And that is something that I respect immensely.
Yeah.
Because over the last few years, I've mentioned this phrase before, I think the Cardinals have just died on the vine far too often. Whether that's early in the season where they didn't make the move with Roycroft / Fernandez last year, or a couple of years ago where they didn't have the starting pitching and they didn't get aggressive to go make a move to get something, or even in 2021 where, man, it could have gone off the rails. It didn't, thank God, but they waited all the way until June, I think it was, to go get your guy, T-Bone, that year. LeBlanc. And then eventually waited all the way to the trade deadline to get J-Happ and John Lester. And finally, they went on that crazy 17-game winning streak. But barring that, they would have missed the playoffs as well. So that's part of what I would say here is they're willing to make the moves that are necessary when they should make them. And they're not waiting too long to do it.
Yeah. And that's just, I thought of it, and it's like, man, in a couple of years, you could be talking about Chaim the same way people have been talking about Doug Armstrong. And again, another refreshing statement of the area that the Cardinals are in is put themselves into that conversation for fans.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we're going to dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T1, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I'm worried about a BKO this weekend.
Uh-oh. What'd you do?
I'm going to KC, heading out there tomorrow night after the show. We're going to go to the Royals game against the Cardinals tomorrow night.
In your Cardinals gear?
Yeah, you going to wear a Cardinal red?
My wife is going to be in Cardinals gear.
Wow.
Hey, not even going to put Luca in Cardinals gear.
Wow.
He said he wants to wear Royal stuff.
Oh, you are the worst.
Oh, man. As a Saint,
to be fair, he also wore Rocky stuff when we went to the Rockies.
As a proud
we don't hate
Saint,
them.
as a proud
This
St.
is our
Louisan,
American League rival.
you look at him and say, buddy, I'm your father, and I'm going to point you in the right direction. You got to wear Cardinal red.
And to be fair, that's my team.
See?
I'm not going to stop
He
him.
admitted it, ladies and gentlemen.
I have an American League team and a National League team.
We got him.
I root for the Cardinals professionally. I root for the Royals personally. And they almost never play each other except for this one time. So we're going to go out there
It's a
for
trash
Father's Day
move,
weekend.
man.
My dad's going to meet us out at the Royals game. Here's my concern, Alex. This weekend, I don't know if you've heard this, there's a thing called the World Cup going on. They do have games in Kansas City. We're planning to go to Union Station, the Science Center, on Saturday. Saturday is the game in KC, which is at Arrowhead. I understand that. So that's a little ways away from downtown.
Not even in KC anymore.
They do, however, have like this fan fest thing going on, and it's right over by the World War I monument/museum, and that is right next to the Science Center area. Am I even going to be able to get there?
You're
Am I
dumb
going
to
to be
even try
driving
this.
for like an hour and a half trying to get to this
What
place?
time
No,
is
you won't be
the
driving.
game in KC? Do you know?
I want to say it's like 8 o'clock. It's that evening.
Oh, yeah.
No, you won't be driving.
My
You're going to be
concern
sitting in
is
traffic.
Everybody's
He
going to be
does.
heading downtown, and then they're going to flow together over to the game after.
That's what I've been seeing
Is that what's
across
happening?
the World
Okay.
Cup.
That's
Cool.
the dumbest
All right,
decision you
so-
could have ever made.
You won't be going there on Saturday, so you may want to replan everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't even attempt to do that.
That's
You're going to be
gonna a
sitting in
mess. Unless you
traffic
go,
for
like,
hours.
If you go around more
5
like
a.m.
no, I meant later in the afternoon, like 4 or 5 o'clock, because they'll start to head to the stadium real early. I don't know what time they open.
We're
the
coming
gates.
back Saturday night, so that seems unlikely. We're coming
well.
back to St. Louis
If
that
you go
night.
at 5 a.m., you might have to
I
avoid some of
doubt
that
it's
traffic.
open.
Yeah. What time does the Science Center open?
I think
Not
like
5
10.
a.m.
Oh, well.
Yeah, you're in
9,
trouble.
10.
You could sit in the parking lot for 4 hours, I guess.
All right, so you'll be coming home around 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Somebody said you going to the World Cup? Nope. If they were cheaper tickets, I would absolutely
That was the
go.
BKO I thought you were going to say. It's like,
Prices.
But it's like $500 to get in.
Well, I saw like the games that are going on tomorrow because the U.S. plays. Every game tickets, the lowest ticket price was like $1,000 to get in.
My God,
which is
man.
insane. And maybe the lowest was like $900 for whatever game it was.
Checking this right now, a third party, Ecuador versus Curacao is the game on Saturday, 7 p.m. $400 is the cheapest
And that's
to
a
get in the door.
crappy game.
Yeah. No, that's not a BKO decision. That's the BKO decision would be you thinking you're going to get to the Science Center and
That's
sitting
my
in
concern.
traffic. Yeah, no, just avoid it altogether and don't go.
Okay, cool.
Make the
Great.
smarter decision and say, well, I'm not going to sit in traffic for this long.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, it is time for Believe It or Not on BK and Ferrario, 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get your scenarios in. But coming up next, JR put together his perfect Blues offseason. T-Bone said it's crap. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, some big news in Major League Baseball. We'll get into the Blues' perfect offseason here in just a little bit. But Major League Baseball, according to multiple reports, has proposed a new CBA to the Players Association. Now, this doesn't matter. It's not going to get signed. We are months and months and months away from anything actually taking place here. But we can see kind of breadcrumbs of where these negotiations will ultimately go based upon the initial talks. Their first proposal for Major League Baseball included a cap. All right, non-starter for the PA, but that's going to be one of the big divides between the two sides. We've known that all along. This one, Alex, included an international draft as part of the new CBA and also would restrict the current draft, the amateur draft, to 12 rounds instead of 20 and would exclude high school players. So now it would be college players after 2 years instead of the 3 that's currently the rule that would be eligible for the Major League Baseball draft, and you would eliminate the 18-year-old high school player that is currently eligible. I got to be honest with you, I kind of like both of these changes. Yep. Now, I'm sure there are unintended consequences that I'm not currently thinking of, but just on the surface, I don't mind this at all. It probably would eliminate one level of minor league baseball, which would be a cost-cutting measure by Major League Baseball. I understand that. I don't know that you necessarily need low A, high A, double A, and triple A. I know that cuts jobs, and I'm not supposed to talk like that. I'm pro player, but hey, if you had A ball, double A, and triple A, I think we could probably make it work in Major League Baseball. And I don't think it's inherently a bad thing that high school players are ineligible. If you're now getting these NIL opportunities at the collegiate level where you can make real money there and continue to get an education, I know that's overlooked by a lot, but I do think it matters.
Yeah, student before athlete.
And you have a support system around you. I think there's value in that. You could get a couple of years in college in you before you become a professional and get thrown to the wolves going into these terrible situations where you're at high A ball and you're bussing around and it's you and 6 of your roommates that are in a 2-bedroom apartment in, I don't know, Peoria, Illinois. Like, I don't think it's inherently a bad thing if those kids instead are playing college baseball. What do you think about this proposal here, Alex?
I liked it too. Like, I saw it, and it's like, first of all, you're eliminating the draft from 20 rounds to 12 rounds because of the high school guys that are ineligible, which I think makes a lot of sense for Major League Baseball, but also makes sense for those kids to go to college and have a little bit more competitiveness. And what does it do in terms of those drafts? I like the international side of this thing too, with an international draft on top of it. So it's rare you see things that come out of this that you're like, yeah, that makes sense, because I feel like you can always make some type of argument of, oh, that's a terrible decision. I like everything about this. I just think it benefits Major League Baseball. It benefits the players that are coming into Major League Baseball. This one makes a lot, and I think it keeps that competitiveness there to where the draft becomes a lot more of intense decisions that have to be made because there's more players that are a little bit more fine-tuned of what you're making decisions over.
Yeah, I don't mind the international draft part of this because I do think they need something to clean up the international market. I think, and everybody in baseball knows, it's been a mess of what it's been ever since that's really been founded. But I don't like cutting the draft down from 20 to 12 rounds. I don't necessarily like blocking high school kids from deciding to go to the draft because they will get a nice signing bonus to join, especially the top-end guys.
They already are getting big money to go to NIL deals.
I don't know that they're getting that big of NIL money to go to play college.
Maybe not to the same degree, but then they're also not being shipped away to these towns where they have very little support system and they're rooming with a bunch of different guys.
Yeah, and I don't like cutting the minor leagues, right? I think the minor league system way it is good right now how it is, and especially for this is a goal to try and cut, if not low A, both low A and high A. I think it would potentially kill both of them. I think it could. I mean, they're really trying to get rid of them because you draft guys just out of college, they're double A guys, right? Look at Doyle. Doyle's a double A guy. Tanner Franklin, I know he's in high A, but you could start him.
The levels would change.
What do you mean?
Now that A-ball would be what we're talking about, the guys that are newest to the sport. So now it would be guys that are just out of college. So, like, the competition would change.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't have high school kids anymore.
Yeah, I don't view that as they need to cut the minor leagues. I don't think you don't need to block high school kids from going in the draft. I don't support that part of it. I like the way that the draft is set up currently and with the 4 minor league systems. I don't think the players are going to go for that because of how much jobs you'd be cutting for it, and the fact that you then cut this bonus pull down from $358 million to $200 million, which is something the PA is not going to like either. I think they're all aboard the international draft. That one I think is going to get unanimous support. Now, there's going to be caveats as how the owners are going to try and wiggle this in, but I don't like the proposal.
Why are you so opposed to, like, let's set aside the rounds in the draft? I'm not so sure that Major League Baseball's Players Association will fight that the way that you're talking about. They already cut it from 50 to 20, which was a huge decrease, far more significant than what we're talking about here. But let's set that aside. Let's say they will. What is so wrong about excluding high school players from the draft?
I think there are some kids that don't necessarily need to go to college and can come in and develop in the system. And I think you're getting better teaching from the major leagues in the minor league system than you're from the collegiate level.
Hard disagree. The top college programs have better facilities than most of the mid-tier minor league places now. Like, a lot of guys from the Cardinals will go back to their college programs because they had technology that was not available at the major league level, much less at a lot of these minor league institutions. So I would definitely push back against that. Like, West Virginia is one of the leading programs in the country when it comes to a lot of their technology that's available at their program. LSU pays some of their coaches more than major league teams, much less what you're seeing from minor league instruction around the league. I don't know, man. I think there's a real case to be made that this would actually be good for players. This would be good long-term for the health of the game. And I think you're seeing some guys that are coming up to the major league level that just aren't ready for it right now. They're being rushed through the minor league system. They get here and it's like, okay, wait, you still had a lot of seasoning left. Would this have been better off if you got some of that at the college level? Especially the players we're really talking about are like top 10 picks. Those guys are going to LSU. They're going to Texas. They're going to West Virginia. They're going to some of the top programs in the country where they're going to get top flight instruction there.
Yeah. I not to like cross contaminate this because we're talking about a different sport, but like I was just telling you guys in the break during hockey or about the hockey side of it, like you're seeing more hockey players go to the college side because one, you're getting paid more money, and two, teams are probably looking at this saying, well, now you're more developed. And I don't know how this works with baseball because there's a little bit more seasoning that goes into it, and you don't have that protection in terms of the pitching side of things, to where an organization gets you into their system as a high schooler and says, okay, well, we can work with you to make sure we maintain that health. But it does feel like developmentally, you're putting those guys into that spot to where when they get to the Major League Baseball draft, you're now a little bit more seasoned, and now teams can actually see what the profile of what this player is rather than drafting you and kind of guessing in the high school level.
Yeah, I just think with those high school guys, like, I don't think you should limit if a high school kid wants to come and play professional baseball, get his signing bonus, and go to those minor league systems.
Do you feel that way in other sports too?
Yeah, I think the NBA, I think they should have allowed high school kids to do it. I mean, I still think the NBA, even with their current rules, are allowing kids to go to the league when they're clearly not ready. I think you look at a lot of those kids that go after fresh one and done, and they're clearly not ready to play at the NBA level, right? So I think I am fine with it because, like, someone on the text line mentioned, like, Bryce Harper, for example, because really this is the conversation. No, he didn't. He was drafted.
To JUCO.
Bryce Harper was drafted, I think, out of high school, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think. I swear he was out of high school. But,
I thought he was out of high school, too.
He dropped out, I believe, got his GED and went to JUCO.
But I still think you shouldn't block the high school kids if they want the opportunity, especially because, like, let's use a pitcher, for example, right? Like, I think Libby was a guy that was drafted out of high school. If you have a high-level ceiling arm and you're a kid coming out of high school, do I really want to go to college where, yes, it's fair to argue about there could be better development, but right now, I could arguably be a top 10 pick because I've got good enough stuff. I could blow my arm out and screw up my entire career going to the collegiate level, right? And you can make the argument, yeah, that's possible in the minor leagues, but at least I got my bonus money from the minor leagues as well and was drafted top 10. I may end up being an undrafted free agent by the time I leave college because I wasn't able to capitalize on my true value as a high school player.
Yeah, I just don't know, like, the players you're talking about are so rare. It's so few and far between. And those are the exceptions to the rule as opposed to the majority. Like, a lot of these kids that are coming out of high school are second, third, and fourth round selections that got a little bit over slot to come to the major league level. And like, for a lot of those kids, I think it's better for them to go to college than it would be to go to the major leagues. I think what you're talking about, T-Bone, is like 1 or 2 kids a year. And I would rather have this rule in place for the other 50 to 75 kids that are not ready for the major leagues, that are making that step, that are better served by going to the college level. Now, that's probably not why Major League Baseball is doing this. Major League Baseball is doing this to save money. So their intentions are not what I'm talking about here. I, though, think it has some positive consequences for some of these kids, but their reason that they would do any of this stuff is just to save money. This is all a business. Here is our bottom line. Here is the money we save if we go this route. So I don't love who I'm arguing on behalf of, but I do think that for the system, I don't know that it necessarily is a bad thing. I personally prefer it.
I do think what's very funny and ironic about this is we're having this conversation about high school kids and not drafting them when the international draft is legitimately drafting guys that are like 16 years old.
And I think we're all on the same page. That's silly. It needs to be overhauled. The international draft is something that Major League Baseball needs to do something
because
with.
then the Cardinals just signed somebody who was like 15 years old.
Am I speaking out of turn there? Do you disagree with that, T-Bone?
No, I think they need to overhaul the draft, but I don't know what they're going to do with that. Like, they may keep it where it's 16-year-old kids that are still eligible.
That's the thing. It's like it feels like they will. It's just now they're in a draft pool.
And right now the problem is some of those kids are like 11 signing.
Yeah,
It's
the problem
crazy. And
is
making
the
millions. Wild West.
Yeah, the problem that they've got there is there's too many, what would you call them, like under-the-table deals that are going on and just bad advice being given to a bunch of kids.
Sounds like the
across.
NCAA.
Yeah, I got there. I totally agree that needs an overhaul, and the Players Association knows that. Like, them and the owners agree on that. I don't think the Players Association wants to have that argument while also arguing about the amateur draft.
There's a lot that needs to get fixed before we can play baseball next year. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, let's get into Believe It or Not here on 101 ESPN. We'll do Believe It or Not coming up in the next segment. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. Alex, earlier today, JR put together his perfect Blues offseason.
Oh, yeah.
We both saw this and said to ourselves, man, if they could even do like half of that, that would be an A+ of an offseason.
Agreed.
T-Bone saw it, and his reaction when we talked to him about it was, I don't know, I don't think it's that good. Seems underwhelming to me. Now, for those of you that have not seen the article, here were some of the moves that were included in JR's piece. And it's well worth your time to read the whole thing because there's explanations on all of them, and the likelihood of any of this happening is not particularly strong. But again, it's the perfect offseason, in Jeremy Rutherford's opinion. First thing they do, trade up to number 2, take Ivar Stenberg.
Win.
Unknown.
Piece number 2.
A lot of capital.
Keep Robert Thomas, name him the captain.
Right? I'm out.
Piece number 3. You package Jordan Kyrou in a deal for Matthew Knies.
Win.
I got nothing on that one. That sounds like a win.
Next thing.
Hold on, he's got nothing on that one, but he's out on Ivar Stenberg.
Next thing. You sign Maverick Bourque to an offer sheet. Then you sign Dylan Dubé as a middle 6 option and center depth. Then you sign Mason Marchment to a contract. You add
Andrew Peak, a defenseman.
Andrew Peak, 28 years old, big, 6'3", 215-pound right shot defenseman to a contract as depth defensively. You trade Jonathan Drouin. You re-sign Snuggerud, Neighbors, and Hofer.
Drouin.
And you move into next year hoping you get off to a better start.
Did he have Parayko traded in that? Because you're going through it now, and I didn't hear Parayko's name.
So
I thought he did.
In the Matthew Knies deal, it said this. Matthew Knies, a 23-year-old left winger, should be the Blues ask before the Leafs fans laugh out loud and say the team would never swap Knies for Kyrou or Parayko. Yes, it'll take a package that could also include prospects and or picks. It's a situation where the Blues could bring in a player who fits their age bracket perfectly, and the Leafs could help themselves both for the now and for the future. So it's either Kyrou or Parayko in that scenario.
And you made reference to him, by the way, in the pit, trading up to 2 as well.
Yeah, so in retrospect, you're probably talking Kyrou in the package to get the 2nd overall pick and Parayko in the package to get Matthew Knies.
Or vice versa, one of the 2.
Whatever it is. So they were gone. So I put those lines together because T-Bone was like, not that great.
Okay, real quick. Okay, I'm tired of being. I can control your mic. I'm tired of being kicked.
Fine. I'm loud enough.
I made that comment just offhand in the office, and then the more we talked about it, the more I went, man, I read that article before my first cup of coffee.
Wow, you need to put.
I read that while still foggy this morning. It actually doesn't sound all that bad.
You need to put some espresso or coffee grounds on your toothbrush then, because this was what that lines looked like. Holloway, Thomas, Snuggerud, Knies, Bourque, Ivar Stenberg, Marchment, Dvorsky, Neighbors, Buchnevich, which is on the 4th line, Dubé and Otto Stenberg. On top of your defense, not looking the greatest, Broberg, Mayu, Lindstein, Juracek, Fowler, Peak, but still a damn good offense in that front. And honestly, I read it, and it's like, oh yeah, all of these are probably together pipe dreams, but even like take out the unrealistic, which would, in my opinion, be the Ivar Stenberg one. Like, you're probably not making that move because San Jose's in a position now. We talked about Knies already. If you do Knies, you're trading Parayko and probably some draft picks. You can offer sheet Maverick Bourque and lose a 1st and a 3rd next year. You can still move Kyrou to fix your defense. Like now, let's say Kyrou for Bo Byram, who's replacing a Colton Parayko, and you're bringing in another defenseman here. You can still sign Dubé if you don't want Marchment, which I saw a piece by Don that said he's probably going to get like $7.5 million. Out on that.
See, this is why I'm out on this.
Go to Jake DeBrusk then and bring in that veteran presence
15th
here.
15th overall for Jake DeBrusk.
No, absolutely not. 29th overall maybe for Jake DeBrusk.
In JR's piece, it was $5.5 million for a 3-year deal for Marchment.
And if that's the case, I like that. 7.5, no way. I'm out on that. But even so, if you take out Stenberg in this front, that's a damn good offseason for the Blues. To get Knies, Bourque, bring in something for your defense. You're moving on from Parayko and Kyrou, which the Parayko one, in my opinion, it's going to hurt. You're replacing a guy who is a safety blanket for some of your younger defensemen, but you're going big picture here, and where your offense would be in that front, you're feeling great about the situation that you're in.
I will say one thing that would concern me is that defense that you did mention, because I don't, as much as we talked about this in the office, and some were joking, well, you could win games 7-5. Yeah, that doesn't happen, right? Not many teams are able to outscore their defensive problems. Yeah, but as much as I like
7-4.
As we talk about it with Hofer and Binnington, we go back and forth on how much is it against the goalie and how much was it the defense. That's a defense that may actually end up hurting you, and it would drag down Hofer's numbers.
I do think it helps when you're in the offensive zone more often and you're harder to play against. And I think this forward group would be much harder to play against. And I'm not just talking about grit, but like the physicality, the presence in front of the net. I also think that you're upgrading your power play quite a bit here
100%.
in this scenario. And yes, it is a huge downgrade from Colton Parayko to whatever it is that they do as a defenseman on that right side. But there's at least pretty significant potential in both Logan Mailloux and I don't want to forget about Adam Jiricek, who in this scenario is probably one of your top 4 defensemen leading into the season.
Mailloux's your top pair, and Jiricek's probably second.
And there's more hope in that than there has been with a lot of the Blues' top 4 defensively in recent seasons. Like it's not as good as what you had last year, but it might be better than what you had like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and that's why I think like you take out the Stenberg scenario and say you use the assets that you were going to use to trade up for him, take those assets and go trade for a defenseman. Because if you're moving Parayko, fill his spot with a Bo Byram, fill his spot with a Owen Power from Buffalo, fill that so that your defense feels better.
If you're doing that, you then don't have the assets to go make some of these other moves that are in this piece.
Well, I mean, I have to imagine you're giving up significant assets to get Ivar Stenberg. Like, you're probably giving up 11, 29 Kyrou, and in the scenario that JR put, you're still finding a way to get Knies.
Gotcha.
So Knies, if it's Parayko in 11.
Forget Stenberg, go get them.
The Stenberg package is like, let's say, Byram. If I were to say, don't trade for Stenberg and the second overall pick, trade for Byram, that's a really good offseason.
The tough part there is I don't think you can make the money work.
But you're taking out Kyrou's $8 million and you're taking out the $6 million from Parayko.
But you're adding like what?
You're adding
7 or 9
Marchment.
with Marchment and the defenseman.
Yep, and
Marchment
you're adding in the
5.
defenseman with Byram, who's going to make big money on a long-term extension because you've got to extend him.
Probably somewhere between 9 and 10, and
you're adding in Knies, which is 7.5.
But Knies is locked up. We're assuming you're paying Byram here. The only guys that you're really paying is Hofer and Snuggerud.
Hofer.
But Binnington comes off the books. You're probably moving on from Pius Suter. Like,
it just gets tight.
It gets tight. But if your core's locked up, because at that point you've got Thomas Holloway, Knies, Snuggerud, Neighbors, on top of Broberg, Byram, Jiricek, Mailloux. Like, your core's locked up.
Yes.
That's the team you're building around. Honestly, it's very similar to what Montreal has. Everything's paid, and now it's just, do you start winning together?
Yeah, and you better be right.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, if you missed on any of that, you're stuck.
And by the way, like, if he does the offer sheet, now, he had it, I think, where they'd give up a second-round pick. I think they're probably doing the one where they're giving up the first and the third for him. Now I don't have my first-round pick for next year either, by the way.
But I got my potentially second or third. No, you don't have your first or third, because if you're going, you don't have your second next year.
So you have to either go more or go get your second.
Yeah, you either have to go for
I'm
first
assuming
or
if
first
board
and third.
signing, you're probably
That's
giving
what
up
I'm saying.
first
You
and
don't
third.
have then in this scenario first, second, or third round pick for next year. So you don't have any of the top 3 selections.
But see, I don't really care about that because my development is done. Because the line combinations that I just gave you in that scenario, I didn't even put Carbonneau on that team.
I would do this stuff, but what I'm saying here is like your flexibility is now gone.
Yeah, it's
this
too
is your
risky
team,
for me.
And
it's risky.
What T-Bone said about the defense is real.
No, and I did change. I am out on this perfect offseason.
You have to be right on all of this, or you have just signed yourself up for potentially being a middle-of-the-road kind of team for the next not only couple of years. I mean, you're locked in for like 5 years going. And all these dudes have no move or no trade clauses associated with them for the most part.
Trades.
It's tight, and it gets expensive. It's the kind of thing where I think instead of making all of these moves, you probably make 1 or 2 of them, and you feel pretty good about it by the end of the offseason.
Yeah. I
so
still
this
say
might be the perfect offseason. I think there are a lot of ways for this to be a very good one.
I still say the biggest need this offseason is the center spot. Like, I love the idea of Matthew Knies, but even if I'm trading for Knies, I still need to fix my center depth. And if I'm trading Parayko, now I got to fix my defense. So, as Doug Armstrong likes to say, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And at that point, you start looking around saying, okay, well, now we got to plug this hole that we just got rid of to fix this spot.
More news from Jeff Jones. According to him, Cardinals say Chris Roycroft was DFA'd in order to make room on the 40-man for Max Rajcic.
No, don't applaud that.
Wow. Yeah, no. No. I mean, we'll applaud him rules DFA,
man, you're
but
giving up the standing ovation for this guy.
Boo.
How dare you? Oh.
Oh, boo.
Whoa. Boo. Boo. You suck.
Yeah, boo.
Not Roycroft. You, Brandon Kiley.
Royals
I
fan.
hope Chris
He's gonna be a
Roycroft
Royal.
goes on to have a great career
Hope he is
elsewhere.
this
I'm
series.
very happy that he's not on the St. Louis Cardinals anymore. Believe it or not, next.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. Cardinals fell to the Padres yesterday 6-1, but they take 2 of 3 from San Diego. They'll be in Kansas City tonight to start a 3-game set with the Royals. 6:40 will be first pitch. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for St. Louis. Noah Cameron will get the start for Kansas City. And the Cardinals have made a roster move as they have recalled Max Rajcic as they've selected his contract from Memphis. They have DFA'd Chris Roycroft. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows. I'm going to dedicate this performance to Chris Roycroft.
Always
Since
with
he's
us,
not
Chris.
here anymore.
And unemployed.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer.
Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
Chris is just driving down 70, singing with us.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario.
Chris has got the windows down, just singing, screaming,
Oh, and the
screw
wind's-
you, Brandon!
And the wind's going through that beautiful beard.
My fastball still works!
Jordan Walker in a bit of a dry spell. 2 for his last 16, 8 for his last 40. Alex, believe it or not, we see a Jordan Walker home run tonight at 3.5 to 1 odds.
I'll believe it against the Royals with that pitching staff, yeah.
Say
They're
not
the
believe
slump
it.
busters.
Yeah, they are the slump busters. I'm going to say not a home run tonight. That's a big ballpark. So I'll say not believe it.
It does not matter. You cannot contain that man. I will believe it. Jordan Walker, homer tonight. Alex?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the Edmonton Oilers missed the playoffs next year with Mike Babcock as their head coach.
Not. Got 2 of the greatest players in the world. That's enough.
Yeah? You think he's going to make Tristan Jarry a good goaltender?
Nope, they made it this year, though.
You think that
Doesn't
defense is going to look better without Darnell Nurse?
matter. Maybe.
I don't think so.
Probably not, but maybe.
How great would it be if Mike Babcock comes in and they miss the postseason?
Leon Draisaitl missed 20 games last year, and they still made it to the playoffs because Connor McDavid had 140 points.
Yeah, but I would say Ducks are going to be better. Golden Knights will be there. Sharks are going to be better.
Yeah.
Oilers got to contend with those 3 teams. And then you get the wild card, which right now, I think you got 5-6 teams in the Central Division that make things tough.
I get it.
Not going to be easy.
I don't know that they were particularly well coached this year anyways.
You bite your tongue about Chris Knobloch.
Yeah, he's fine. I got no issues with him, but I don't think that it's the coaching that's either had them.
I don't either. I think it's
good
the
or bad.
goaltending, and the coaching's not going to make that goaltending any better.
I would be BK.
I'm believing it. You guys are dumb.
Damn.
Both of you need to show me your phones.
Believe it or not, the Blues will do enough this offseason to be better than their 86 points this past season.
Believe it.
I'll believe it for 86. I think they get above that, but I don't know how much more.
Yeah. I think they're 90.
get in that 90 range.
I think a 90 to 94 point team. And I think the players that will be on the roster will excel. And I do think there will be one big move that they make.
I'm going to say not. I think they're going to be around like 84 to 86. I think
You
they're in the same
hate
range.
the Blues.
As much as we talk about it, I wonder if they're going to run it back for the most part next year. And if they do that, I'm not going to hold higher expectations that they're going to finally find the, to go show up in the first half. So, yeah, I'm not going to believe it. Yeah, I'm more down on the Blues because they've proven out of 3 of the last 4 years you should be down on them.
Let's get to a few of these from the text line from the 314. Believe it or not, Chaim Bloom listens to BK and Ferrario for player management advice.
I believe it.
I don't know about management advice,
I don't know
but
if you
he
guys
definitely listens.
know this about me, but I run a team on MLB The Show, and they're 162-0.
My team would be a losing team and well over budget.
My team would be.
But beyond
my
that,
team
we'd
is,
make a lot of big, interesting moves.
My team.
And then we'd be stuck for 5 years. We'd be terrible. And then we'd make a lot of big and interesting moves again.
My team, when they struggle, goes into edit mode and ups the power for every single player.
I
So
think we'd be good with me running the show. I definitely know I can balance a budget sheet.
I'd like to manage against you.
And I think I could build a good team. I've got an eye for pitching. Now, the position player, I've been wrong on that one a lot.
I got a better chance of.
We may be like the Rose. We may not be able to hit, but you sure as hell better bet we're going to be able to pitch.
I got a better chance of managing a hockey team.
From the 618. Guys, believe it or not, an NFC West team will not win the Super Bowl this year. I'm not believing that. I think an NFC West team is winning it.
I think the Rams or 49ers or Seahawks will be there. So.
No, I'm not believing it. I think the 3 best teams in the NFL are in that division.
Believe it or not, the Blues will make 3 selections in the first round this year.
Still going to say not believe it. I think one of those picks gets attached to a player to upgrade their team right now. I think they take 2.
Right now, I'll say believe it. I think they will.
I'm going to say believe it as well. I'm not sure they're moving one of those picks.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Last one here from the 573. Believe it or not, the Cardinals could make it to the World Series due to the decline of the Dodgers players, and they get hot at the right time. They'll be this year's version of the Diamondbacks.
You're talking about the Dodgers getting hot at the right time because when they get to the playoffs, they'll be healthy, so not believing it.
Yeah, not believing it. Update on the Dodgers, they're not trying right now. And and they're even like the guys that we talk about is like having down years. Like Tucker started to play better. Betts started to play better since coming back. Like, no.
Guess what? Only have the best record in the National League, though.
Guess what the Dodgers do when the playoffs start? Baseball. They flip the switch to winning.
And they're getting freaking reinforced. Edmund returned last night. Hernandez is going on a rehab assignment.
And they're also going to trade for Tarek Skubal.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys.
Andy Ball is quietly cooling down.
Oh, no.
All right,
what will we do?
Only 15 home runs.
Oh.
What will we do without this guy?
Yamamoto, 2.5 ERA.
Oh, yeah, really struggling.
Wroblewski, one of their worst starters.
That guy doesn't make any sense to me.
2.7 ERA.
He does. He's the Dodgers.
It just, they're very, very
They're going
good.
to use him to get skill, and then he'll suck for the Tigers.
Your chance at a World Series is once the salary cap gets instigated.
Hey, tomorrow, this Friday, the morning after, along with our radio friends from all 5 Hubbard radio stations, are set up to team up to fill a truck for Operation Food Search. They are going to have support from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken and the Happy Roof Company. Stop by the station on Friday morning because TMA will be headed downstairs to broadcast live out front in the parking lot from 7 to 11 a.m. They'll be collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items. We'll be handing out donuts from Donut Drive-In while those supplies last, and I think there's going to be like 300 plus donuts, so I think we're going to be a decent amount of supplies, and everyone who stops by will have a chance to enter to win a $500 grand prize. So say hello tomorrow. Hang out with TMA as they're broadcasting live right outside of our doors here in Creve Coeur, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And they're finding canned goods and non-perishable food items. Any of you guys that can bring them in, it would be very, very helpful for the guys. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, join me tonight with Michelob Ultra at the Mexican STL for Mexico versus South Korea. Me and the 101 crew and Michelob Ultra will be on site with 101 ESPN and Ultra giveaways starting at 6 o'clock, leading up to kickoff of Mexico versus South Korea at 8. Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer and the official beer sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 26. So be sure to enjoy an Ultra as you cheer on your favorite team. That's tonight starting at 6 with me and Michelob Ultra at the Mexican STL, 9615 Watson Road in Sappington, leading up to Mexico versus South Korea at 8. All the details at 101ESPN.com.
If you guys missed any of today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. And that is always sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
101 ESPN app sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Brad Thompson. We'll have Mike McKenna, their usual Friday spots. We'll also be joined by Spilly from the Apple TV broadcast. He'll be on the call on Saturday, I guess, for the Cardinals. Friday. For the Cardinals versus the Royals. So we'll be able to discuss that all with him tomorrow here on BK and Ferrario. You can also check out the latest edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast is posted now at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. And we're getting ready to record a new edition of the Redbird Report, which will be posted later on this afternoon. So be sure to keep a lookout for that. Cards versus the Royals tonight. Libby on the mound going up against Noah Cameron. I'm really interested to see what Libby looks like this evening. Potentially get to see Max Rajcic make his major league debut at some point in this series as well. Alex, how you feeling going into this series against the Royals?
If they don't take all three, I'm out on this Cardinals team, and they should sell at the deadline.
Wow.
You got to win all three. I think they do sweep this series against the Royals.
I think they take 2 of 3, and I think Libby's going to look good tonight. You know, I had questions what Leahy would look like going in that start yesterday, then he shoved because the Padres' offense stinks, the Royals' offense stinks, therefore Libby has a good game. Cardinals win.
I think this is a good one for him as well. I do think the Cardinals get the win tonight. I'm very curious to see what the weekend looks like. It's McGreevy and May on the mound. This is a real chance to be a sweep for the St. Louis Cardinals. I think at a minimum you get 2 out of 3. We'll discuss that all tomorrow. Again, Mike McKenna, Brad Thompson, Spilly joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is next here on 101 ESPN.